The Destination by Oxana Eliahu. Part 3. How I Met My Boaz and Ended Up in Peculiar. Chapter 23. TogetherForever.com. It was 2008. My father was gravely ill. Doctors diagnosed him with the 3rd stage of cancer. His time on earth seemed to be slipping away quicker with every second. Divorced with kids in my 40s, I felt I was a complete wreck. Where would life take me next? Sunday, the 12th of October, 2008, was a regular workday in Israel. My mom needed to run some errands, so I came to look after my dad at their little government-subsidized apartment in Bat Yam at Beit Gil HaZahav, the Golden Age house. The sweet smell of serniki, Russian cheese pancakes, my mom prepared for my dad and me filled the apartment. Summer heat had given way to a cool breeze that came through the open window, along with the sounds of ambulance sirens, buses, and cars. With the shopping mall right in front of the building, the street was always noisy and crowded. If the noise wasn't coming from outside, it came from downstairs. The ground floor of the Golden Age house had offices and a big concert hall where residents had entertainment and the rooms for table games. My dad enjoyed playing chess and checkers there. That day, the residents' choir was practicing, and I wished they would all be quiet and let my daddy rest. I didn't know whether it was my divorce, my father's illness, or the weight of it all together that was so unbearable, but I longed for a change. I wanted to escape and see what was going on in the world around me. Rosa, a heavy-set woman with blue eyes and short dark hair, was a friend of mine. She wore thick rose-colored glasses, and unlike me, she had someone to talk to on almost every continent. She suggested that I create a profile on TogetherForever.com. Why not entertain myself? Perhaps this would help me forget about my reality for a few moments. So I took Rosa's advice and made a profile with my best photos and a chosen name, Matana, which means gift in Hebrew. I found that chatting with a complete stranger on the other side of the world, with no chance of ever meeting one another, made it easy for me to be bold and easygoing. From time to time I checked on my father, who slept in the other room. I helped him get to the bathroom and asked if he'd like to eat some serniki. He didn't have any appetite, but agreed to eat one and drink some pomegranate juice. "How are you feeling, Daddy?" "I'm fine, just tired," he said. His face was pale. He'd lost so much weight. When I hugged him, I could feel all his bones. He went back to bed, and I sat near him for a while. I was lost in thoughts over my circumstances and how I might be rescued from them. All things will somehow come together, I kept telling myself. Chapter 24. Night at the Hospital. That day I went to sleep late. In the middle of the night my mom called me in a panic because my dad was in pain. Thanks be to God they lived nearby, so we got to the hospital in almost no time. After routine screening of my dad's condition, they gave him some medicine. He felt better, and by 6 a.m. I took them back to Golden Age House. By 7 a.m. I was already at work. I didn't know what to do with my dad's situation. It was hard to make all the decisions alone. My mom couldn't take care of my dad. She was so scared. I was scared too, racking my brain, trying to decide how to handle all of this. I wished someone would give me advice. I really needed a friend, someone who really cared. My father was dying of cancer. The doctors offered no hope and said he would not live much longer. Yet Mom and I hoped for a miracle. I wished I had a sister or a brother so I didn't feel so alone. I still hadn't overcome the pain of my divorce, coping with everything that it brought. Even with friends, I felt lost and alone everywhere and all the time. The only good thing in being alone was that nobody could yell at me, call me names, and tell me that I was trash and worthless. I had already gone through that pain and humiliation, and I hoped to never go through that again. The aching of my soul washed over me in waves. Although I had been healed and could sincerely forgive without anger, I felt sadness when I thought about having spent my best years with a person who never really loved or cared for me. From time to time I chatted with a man from the United States whom I had met at TogetherForever.com. His name was Finnegan. From his pictures on TogetherForever.com I saw a sturdy man who knew how to handle life and make decisions. I had enough mess of my own, and I didn't need to deal with someone else's problems. I could sense something special in Finnegan. Underneath that fancy suit and well-trimmed hair there was a man looking for adventure, willing to take chances. Something drew me in. I knew there was more to him than I was able to see through a silly dating website. Finnegan told me he had been divorced and had raised 3 kids by himself. I didn't know any man who had done that. I shared with Finnegan about my father's situation, as this was the only thing I could talk about. He sent me some scripture to encourage me. Perhaps God had sent me an angel to comfort me and make me feel good. I wrote him about my music and sent him a few of my songs from my latest album that was produced in 2007. He loved it and asked me to send him more links to my YouTube videos. Finnegan wrote every day. His emails were so caring and kind, too good to be true. Even though he seemed to be a godly man, I was still a little suspicious, trying to analyze and make sure I wasn't dealing with some kind of crafty scammer. Chapter 25. Faith in God. My dad's condition worsened again, so we called an ambulance. As much as I hated hospitals, I knew Dad would be able to get some help there. My precious Daddy would soon be gone. I had never wanted to face that day. I wasn't ready. Even though I'd been praying and asking God to give him more time to perform a miracle, I couldn't count on that. Our human days are numbered. We all have our time and day when we'll be gone from this earth. Since I wasn't sure my father was saved, I worried about his soul and where he would go after death. I believed a person makes the decision concerning the eternal future while still here on earth. I felt the need to preach to my dad before it was too late, so I prepared a sermon. Many times during more than 10 years, I had taken my father to a Messianic synagogue, Tiferet Yeshua, glory of Jesus, but he never seemed to be touched or interested in Yeshua. However, one day we had a guest preacher from America who shared his powerful testimony. I translated it into Russian for my parents as he spoke. At the end of the sermon, the preacher made an altar call. He asked those who wanted to receive Yeshua into their hearts to stand up so he could pray for them. My dad, who had just been diagnosed, stood up. I praised God for this moment, a big step in my father's life. Everything would be different now, and my father would become a changed, godly man who would live a transformed life. After all, if God could change me, he could change anyone. But the transformation I desperately wanted for him didn't happen. It was nothing more than an emotional experience for my dad. I had to speak to him about faith again before it was too late. Although I was always good at telling stories, I felt inadequate as a preacher. I had to be effective and pick some scripture from the Bible that would somehow touch my dad's heart, or at least attract his attention. It had to be something about healing. I remembered 2 passages. One spoke about how Moses had made a bronze snake and wrapped it around a pole. Anyone who had been bitten by a poisonous snake needed only to look at the bronze one and be healed. The other passage was from John 3, about Rabbi Nicodemus, who had come to Yeshua at night and asked how to be born again. My dad listened closely as I recounted the stories. He seemed to feel a little better, but soon went back to bed and fell asleep. Sitting by my father's bedside at the hospital, I wondered if having company there would be helpful. I could have called my friends from the congregation and asked them to come and be with me, but I didn't feel like talking to anyone and preferred to be alone with my family, my dad and my mom. Chapter 26. Dad's Funeral and the Shiva. During this hard time, Finnegan wrote often to say he was praying for my dad and my family. Whoever he was at that moment, I needed this support and comfort. He managed to lift up my spirit. Finnegan always sent me scriptures. He suggested that I read to my father several times from John chapter 3. Finnegan wrote, "I urge you to read to him the story of Nicodemus, finding salvation. Even if your dad isn't responding by talking, he may hear you. I am sure he loves hearing your voice, and the message could connect when you least expect it." Tears filled my eyes when I read it, for this was the exact chapter I'd shared with my dad 2 days before. It felt as if God himself hugged me and said, "You've done well." It encouraged me greatly. At that painful moment, in a gloomy hospital room, I felt the love of God. This confirmation about the right chapter came through Finnegan, which was significant. Even though we might never meet in person, he would always be that special man God sent to comfort me during that difficult time. I was grateful to my Heavenly Father and to Finnegan. My heart broke to see my father in such terrible pain. The doctors gave him morphine and told us he could pass away at any moment. I felt so helpless. I prayed and tried to encourage my mom, but I couldn't find the right words. I sat beside my father's bed at the hospital and quietly asked God to have mercy on him. I couldn't read aloud to him like Finnegan suggested, for there was another patient sleeping in the next bed. On October 19th, 2008, about 11 at night, my father passed away. He was only 71. He didn't want to go. He loved life and still had big plans. I couldn't fathom life without him. Yet I thanked Adonai, who showed his mercy by delivering my dad from his suffering. In spite of the late hour, a few relatives came to the hospital to say goodbye. In Israel, it is not accustomed to bury people in caskets. Usually the funeral takes place as soon as possible, often in the same day before the sunset. Only close relatives were allowed to view and identify the body right before the funeral. By 3 o'clock in the morning, the hospital paperwork was done and the funeral was scheduled that same day in the afternoon. My mom and I went home to organize and plan, which kept us busy and helped us not to think about the new reality. My mother was weak, and I was worried about her. Many people showed up at the funeral to support us. Some relatives and friends shared a few words about my dad. I gathered all my strength, asked God to be with me, and said aloud, "I love you, Daddy. I still can't imagine my life without you. Your body is here in this cold grave, but I believe your soul is immortal. It isn't buried here with your body. You are in a good place now, and all your pain has gone. You'll be missed greatly, but it's only until we meet again in a better place." After I said this, I couldn't hold myself together any more. I cried. My eyes were so red from all the tears. People from my job and from my congregation brought flowers. I deeply appreciated their care. When almost everyone had gone, I still stood at my father's grave. An inexplicable peace filled me. My God was there with me, comforting and giving me a new strength. The next day we cleaned my mother's house to prepare for visitors. In Israel, the tradition is Lashevet Shiva, which literally means to sit for 7 days of mourning. The door of the house is kept open all day long during Shiva for people to visit, pray, and comfort the family of the deceased. It is considered an important mitzvah or commandment to take time and be with the family, to support and offer condolences to widows. Before I lost my dad, I was unaware of the deep meaning of this mitzvah. We put up pictures and videos of my dad as people came day after day to see us. Having family and friends over helped ease my mom's emotional pain. She was busy serving tea and coffee and sharing photos of her husband to everyone who came. The harder times came when the Shiva was over and we were back in our routines. I wanted to know if my father was saved. I prayed for a sign. A thought came to me that if I dreamed of my father wearing white, it would be that sign. However, it wasn't I who had the dream. A few months later, my daughter Natalie, unaware of my prayers, told me she saw her grandfather in a dream. "What was he wearing?" I asked. "I don't remember exactly. It was something white." Chapter 27, Rosa's Advice. I forgot what normal life felt like. For almost 2 years I had run back and forth from home to the hospital, to doctor's appointments and clinics. I couldn't go anywhere and often had to cancel my plans. After my dad passed away, my routine changed. Suddenly I'd been released. I was free to focus on my own life. I had quality time to spend with my mom, who came to live with me. Sad and lonely without my dad, she wasn't ready to live by herself. Finnegan called and emailed me every day, and we also chatted through instant messaging in the evenings. It was interesting to find out that we gave our sons the very same name. Finnegan's youngest son's name was Joseph, and my son was Yosef. I sent Finnegan some of my songs from 2 of my albums that I produced in 2005 and 2007. One day, Finnegan said to me, "Vita, I understood from our very first communication that you are unique when compared to the entire world, and every time we shared our thoughts, I felt this even stronger." When I told my friend Rosa about Finnegan, she teased me with all her silliness. Then she sobered and asked, "When is he coming to Israel?" I smiled. "Rosa, it's just a virtual romance story. He doesn't specifically talk about meeting me. I wish I understood better what he has in mind." "Is he rich?" Rosa looked at me with a big hope in her eyes. "I don't really know." "Didn't you ask him what he does for a living?" I felt like I was passing a test on my behavior, and Rosa was my examiner. "Yes, sure," I replied. "He is a teacher. He teaches in public schools, and he also preaches. I don't know if he gets paid for his preaching or not. Oh, he also told me that he has a website where he sometimes does business, selling cars, motorcycles, and auto parts." "Well, that doesn't sound too promising," Rosa reasoned. "Didn't you meet any guys through TogetherForever.com?" "Rosa, I only had a 10-day trial, and I was so busy with my dad." "So tell me, why did you pick this Finnegan?" I shrugged. "He was the first guy with whom I chatted. I liked him at first glance and on the first chat. He's fun to talk to." "Maybe it's love," I tried to tease Rosa. "Are you in love or crazy?" "Rosa, you know that I'm a little crazy. By the way, some people like this about me." "Well, I'm so glad to see that you are getting normal and crazy again. This last year you were not the Vita I knew. I understand you went through much pain. God has something special for you, I'm sure. So what is going on with this first chat guy? What's his name again?" "Finnegan." "I don't like his name. It's weird. I never even call him by his name. I just can't. It's too hard to pronounce." "Do you really like him?" "I'm not sure. Sometimes I feel like I'm already connected to him, his emails and his kind words. But it's just imaginary, kind of like reading a story or playing a game. Rosa, I'm not even sure if I'm ready for a new love story." Rosa's expression suddenly changed. "In any case, make sure you don't think seriously about any guy until you meet him." Chapter 28, New Year's Eve. In Russia, New Year's Eve was one of my favorite holidays and felt more like Christmas. When many Russian Jews came to Israel in the 90s, they brought with them their own culture and traditions, including the Winter New Year's celebration. In contrast, Israelis don't acknowledge the secular New Year on January 1st. Instead, they observe Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, which is celebrated in the fall. The horrible 2008 year was over, and I hoped that 2009 would be better. Some of my Russian friends and family invited me to the New Year's celebration, but I opted not to join them. I didn't feel like going to a party. In Russia, we were very superstitious. One belief was that the person with whom you spend New Year's Eve is the person with whom you'll spend the whole coming year. So here I was, spending the time with my lonesome self. "Those superstitions are nothing but lies and deception from the enemy," I tried to reassure myself. It was almost midnight when suddenly I heard a chime from my Skype. It was Finnegan. When the image loaded, I saw him with a handsome young man. I guessed this was Joseph, his younger son, who looked so much like his father. They both wore Russian ushankas, fur hats, and looked very cute. They started singing, "Jesus loves me, this I know." What a wonderful surprise. After talking for a while, the three of us prayed together, asking God for blessings for the new year and for our future meeting. It felt so good. Even though Finnegan and Joseph were thousands of miles away, I didn't feel alone anymore. I smiled, remembering again the Russian superstition The person with whom you spend New Year's Eve is the person that you'll spend the whole coming year with. Finnegan liked to make comparisons using examples from nature. Once he said, when a field is plowed for a new seedbed, it wrecks the old seedbed for the new one to take root and prosper. What do you mean by that? I asked. I don't know much about farming. Finnegan's agricultural metaphors were hard for me to grasp. Well, he simplified, it's like you coming into my life would bring a good change. I grinned. It looks like you brought some change to my life as well. I'm thinking of you a lot. You are special, Vita, and I'm eager to meet you and spend quality time together. I tried to test the waters. So when you spoke about good change in your life, did you mean perhaps one day coming to live in Israel? Well, that's not exactly what I meant. I surely hope one day to come to visit Israel. Moving to Israel would take me at least 3 to 4 years. It's not that easy. I thought you wanted to come to America. When I first saw your profile online and noticed that you were from Israel, I was absolutely sure you were looking for someone in the United States because you wanted to move here. I thought the opposite. When you started communicating with me, knowing that I was from Israel, I assumed you are like most foreigners I've met before, longing to live in the Holy Land. Do you know that this is the best place in the whole world? The Son of God lived and walked here. Though I was born in Russia, I feel that this is my home and I belong here. Yes, he said, I understand. By the way, did you tell anyone in your family about me? I asked Finnegan. Joseph knows. I know that your youngest son knows. Remember, I met him on Skype. But what about your other children, your siblings, and your mom? I still didn't tell anyone because they might think I've gone crazy. I don't think they would understand. Some may even be against this idea of an Israeli girl, but when they meet you in person, they will surely love you because you are special. Is your family anti-Semitic? No, not at all, he replied in a sincere tone. They love Israel and God's chosen people. That's good. Do you mind if I ask you something about your property? You can ask anything you want, he said. I don't mind at all. Is it right that you own a road? Finnegan sounded confused. What? How did you come to this thought? I saw in the video that you sent me. The whole time you drove, there were no other cars around. How was this possible? I've never seen this in Israel. The roads here are constantly full of traffic. I don't own a road. That's cute you even thought that. In the United States, you can find many quiet roads like this one. When you come, I will take you on a motorcycle ride on some of them. That would be fun, I smiled. Chapter 29. Finnegan's Story. That winter in 2009, Finnegan went through the same hard experience I had because his mom's health deteriorated, but at least he wasn't alone since he had 7 siblings. After a few weeks, when his mom passed away and he was making funeral arrangements, I tried to be there for him as much as I could by praying and sending him encouraging scriptures. Finnegan had told me very little about his parents and siblings. After his mom passed away, he shared a little more about his family. I have a brother, he started his story. His name is Adam. When he was a teenager, he had a terrible accident at the family farm. Since then, he required daily supervision. He lived with my mom, and she took care of him. Now, my oldest brother, Alex, lives with him and supervises him. The family estate relies on me, because my mother requested that I take care of the family matters upon her illness or death. So I have responsibilities here for an indefinite period of time. I'm really sorry about your brother's accident. It sounds like a tragic story, I said. Yes, this was a big trauma for my parents and for all of us in the family. I began to download and take in what Finnegan had said, for an indefinite period of time. His words were buzzing loudly in my head. Well, I said with a lump in my throat, I think I understand. I'm glad you shared this with me. What did you understand? Finnegan sounded puzzled. I understand that it would be a waste of time for us even to meet, as you are stuck there in the United States for an indefinite period of time. When I heard myself saying this, sadness came over me. Something was breaking. I was glad that Finnegan couldn't see me as we talked over the phone. Even though I felt despondent, I tried to sound as though nothing had happened. You know, that's fine. I tried my best not to show my emotions. It's obvious now that it's not necessary for us to meet. It would be stupid to spend our effort, energy, and money. Vita, wait. No, I didn't mean that at all. I actually thought the opposite. I know it looks like our future together is absolutely impossible, yet it really seems there is no way out. But please wait. I wanted to tell you something important. What do you want to tell me? You don't need to explain anything. I got it. I must admit that I didn't realize I already was attached to him. Perhaps I had been tamed. I remembered the fox from my favorite book, The Little Prince. He was so right. I was definitely going to get hurt. It was better for me to know the truth and to end our relationship the sooner the better, before it went any further. I didn't need another trauma. Of course, if we stopped communicating, I would miss our chats and emails for a while, but that would pass and it would be fine. It was better now than later. Vita, are you there? Why are you quiet? Finnegan interrupted my thoughts. Yes, I'm here. I just don't know what to say. I don't think you understood me, Finnegan clarified. Remember when the people of Israel were coming out of Egypt and they reached the Red Sea? Yes, I remember the story, but what's the connection? Remember they had the sea before them and the Egyptians running after them? They had absolutely no way out, but God opened the sea for them. So what I wanted to say is that if it is God's will, He can open the sea for us too. I'm certain that we shouldn't give up, and at least give it a chance. I want to meet you very much. I liked how he made this parallel. He must be a real strong believer. Yes, God can do amazing things. He is the God of possibilities. But to know and to believe, especially to count on it, is a different story. I really want to meet you, Vita, Finnegan tried to convince me. I believe if we don't meet, we would always be sorry and might feel like we had lost our best chance in life. Finally, Finnegan was saying it. I knew he was serious about me, but it was good to hear it over and over again. Somehow, during the past few months when we had touched this topic about me going to the United States to visit him, or him coming to Israel to see me, he hadn't sounded determined. He'd spoken about the tickets being very expensive, and even mentioned once that he wasn't a rich person. At times I wasn't sure if he was seriously thinking about us meeting each other. He had not even ordered his passport yet. Was it really that difficult to get a passport? I remembered his words again. If it's His will, God can open the sea for us. If we don't meet, we would always be sorry and might feel like we had lost our best chance in life. It seemed our story wasn't over. Chapter 29. Finnegan's Story. That winter in 2009, Finnegan went through the same hard experience I had because his mom's health deteriorated, but at least he wasn't alone since he had 7 siblings. After a few weeks, when his mom passed away and he was making funeral arrangements, I tried to be there for him as much as I could by praying and sending him encouraging scriptures. Finnegan had told me very little about his parents and siblings. After his mom passed away, he shared a little more about his family. I have a brother, he started his story. His name is Adam. When he was a teenager, he had a terrible accident at the family farm. Since then, he required daily supervision. He lived with my mom, and she took care of him. Now, my oldest brother, Alex, lives with him and supervises him. The family estate relies on me, because my mother requested that I take care of the family matters upon her illness or death. So I have responsibilities here for an indefinite period of time. I'm really sorry about your brother's accident. It sounds like a tragic story, I said. Yes, this was a big trauma for my parents and for all of us in the family. I began to download and take in what Finnegan had said, for an indefinite period of time. His words were buzzing loudly in my head. Well, I said with a lump in my throat, I think I understand. I'm glad you shared this with me. What did you understand? Finnegan sounded puzzled. I understand that it would be a waste of time for us even to meet, as you are stuck there in the United States for an indefinite period of time." When I heard myself saying this, sadness came over me. Something was breaking. I was glad that Finnegan couldn't see me as we talked over the phone. Even though I felt despondent, I tried to sound as though nothing had happened. "You know, that's fine." I tried my best not to show my emotions. "It's obvious now that it's not necessary for us to meet. It would be stupid to spend our effort, energy, and money." "Vita, wait. No, I didn't mean that at all. I actually thought the opposite. I know it looks like our future together is absolutely impossible, yet it really seems there is no way out. But please wait. I wanted to tell you something important." "What do you want to tell me? You don't need to explain anything. I got it." I must admit that I didn't realize I already was attached to him. Perhaps I had been tamed. I remembered the fox from my favorite book, The Little Prince. He was so right. I was definitely going to get hurt. It was better for me to know the truth and to end our relationship the sooner the better, before it went any further. I didn't need another trauma. Of course, if we stopped communicating, I would miss our chats and emails for a while, but that would pass and it would be fine. It was better now than later. "Vita, are you there? Why are you quiet?" Finnegan interrupted my thoughts. "Yes, I'm here. I just don't know what to say." "I don't think you understood me," Finnegan clarified. "Remember when the people of Israel were coming out of Egypt and they reached the Red Sea?" "Yes, I remember the story, but what's the connection?" "Remember they had the sea before them and the Egyptians running after them? They had absolutely no way out, but God opened the sea for them. So what I wanted to say is that if it is God's will, He can open the sea for us too. I'm certain that we shouldn't give up, and at least give it a chance. I want to meet you very much." I liked how he made this parallel. He must be a real strong believer. Yes, God can do amazing things. He is the God of possibilities. But to know and to believe, especially to count on it, is a different story. "I really want to meet you, Vita," Finnegan tried to convince me. "I believe if we don't meet, we would always be sorry, and might feel like we had lost our best chance in life." Finally, Finnegan was saying it. I knew he was serious about me, but it was good to hear it over and over again. Somehow, during the past few months when we had touched this topic about me going to the United States to visit him, or him coming to Israel to see me, he hadn't sounded determined. He'd spoken about the tickets being very expensive, and even mentioned once that he wasn't a rich person. At times I wasn't sure if he was seriously thinking about us meeting each other. He had not even ordered his passport yet. Was it really that difficult to get a passport? I remembered his words again. If it's His will, God can open the sea for us. If we don't meet, we would always be sorry and might feel like we had lost our best chance in life. It seemed our story wasn't over. Chapter 30. Planning my trip to the United States. One day when we were chatting, I dared to ask Finnegan a straightforward question. Perhaps it was chutzpah to ask so directly, but I had no choice. I wished he would have offered this himself, but he never did. So I wrote, "If I come to the USA to meet you, would you buy me a ticket?" I couldn't believe I asked him that, but the words were already on the other side of the planet, and he was reading them. "I will pay for half of it," he replied. Wow, this was reasonable. This man didn't know me, and I could have been a scammer as well, but he was ready to invest into our meeting. I felt like the ice was finally broken. He must be serious about me, since nobody in their right mind would invest $600 for someone he doesn't care about. Now that things seemed to be moving forward, I began to panic. My mind was racing, full of ideas, trying to analyze the situation and come to a logical conclusion. After examining all the possibilities, I said to myself, "Vita, there are only 4 possibilities in your relationship with Finnegan. Number 1, we meet and realize what a wrong impression we had of each other. We feel no connection, and we both are disappointed. After saying goodbye, we never see or talk to each other again. End of story. Number 2, we meet, He likes me, but I don't care for him at all. So the man's heart is broken. We wasted our time and our money for nothing. Number 3, I have a crush on him, but he shows no interest in me. I'm heartbroken and he is frustrated. Number 4, we meet, fall in love, and decide to be together for the rest of our lives. Except there is a problem. He is stuck in America, and I'm in Israel. Even in this case, we can't be together. My roots, my family, and my heart are in Israel forever. No way will I ever leave for another country. For a moment the answer was clear. We should forget about each other. Why waste so much time and put ourselves in this vulnerable position? My daughter Natalie still lived in Seattle, in the U.S. I had in mind to visit her anyway. I said to myself, I'm actually not losing anything. It's a bargain deal for me since Finnegan would pay half of my travel cost. It's obvious that I should go for it. It had been almost 8 months since our first chat in October 12, 2008. The dates were set. I had tickets in hand from Tel Aviv to Kansas City for the beginning of June. I began to plan my trip and decided that I must have a backup plan in case I'd need to make a fast escape. To protect myself, I had to have some flexibility, to play it by ear and act in accordance to the situation. It would be better not to be stuck with specific dates and times, so I chose to buy air tickets to Seattle only after I met Finnegan and understood what's going on. The worst case scenario, I'd just go to the airport and take any plane. I knew it would cost me a fortune, but this was the only possible strategy for my real safety. When I told Natalie I was going to see a man whom I met through the internet, she said, "Mom, are you crazy? What if he's a murderer? Don't even dare. Please, I'm begging you." She was really concerned about me, but I was confident that Finnegan wasn't dangerous. I'd never go on this adventure unless I prayed and felt shalom in my heart. I planned to be mostly in public places and not alone with him, except motorcycle riding, of course. Finnegan had a son who lived with him, which made the accommodations safer. At least we wouldn't be alone at his house. I found out that in the Kansas City area where Finnegan lived, there would be a conference called Israel Mandate, which I wanted to attend, especially since one of my favorite Bible teachers from Israel, Tony Goldman, was scheduled to preach. The timing of this conference worked perfectly for my circumstances. I asked Finnegan to buy tickets for this event so we would already have something planned for the very first evening. The conference was a 3-day event, so if nothing else, I'd just be there the whole time and could run away after that. Why am I so scared? I asked myself. We had been communicating for almost 8 months. Vita, relax. Enjoy your trip. Forget about the ifs or buts. Chapter 31. Kansas City. After a 12-hour flight, I was finally at the Kansas City airport. It's amazing that after such a long trip, I didn't feel tired at all. Finnegan came toward me with a huge bouquet of flowers. He was dressed in an elegant black suit. He smiled and hugged me. "Oh, Vita, you're so beautiful. I'm so happy to finally meet you in person." I was a little shy in the beginning, but I soon felt comfortable and relaxed. He took me to his house, located on a hill with 2 ponds around it. The small house was so neat and cozy, decorated for my sake with rose petals and colorful balloons in the form of hearts. The entire place was full of gorgeous burning candles. There was food on the table prepared especially for me. Soft music played quietly. I felt like I was finally in my fairy tale. At last I had found my prince. We both knew that we were created for one another. After dinner we went outside. We held hands and talked about our future, which seemed to be sealed forever. I felt so happy, so content. The sky was full of stars. They were so big and bright, a wonderful display for this special occasion. "You didn't tell me you have this amazing house and so much land." "All I have will be yours now. I love you, Vita. You are the most precious princess that God brought to me." His well-shaved face was so close to mine I could feel his breath. I closed my eyes as I waited for his lips to touch mine. Suddenly I heard a loud woman's voice. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived in Kansas City. The temperature outside is 82 degrees. Your luggage will be at gate 29, which is on the left-hand side when you exit the aircraft. Please don't forget your belongings. Thank you very much for flying Delta Airlines." I woke up tired and felt weird. What a dream! I assumed that something really amazing was going to happen. All my life I had waited for a prince who would arrive on a white horse. A motorcycle would work too, and whisk me away to his magnificent palace where we would live in perfect bliss. Perhaps this was a prophetic vision. Here I was at the Kansas City airport, a romantic woman, sensitive to every little detail, very emotional and full of illusions, nervously walking to the luggage area while scanning the terminal for someone tall like Finnegan carrying a bouquet of flowers. I saw a man approaching me, but it wasn't him. The tall stranger looked older than my friend Finnegan and was carrying no flowers. "Hi, Vita, how was your trip? It's so nice to finally meet you in person," he said. I recognized this voice immediately. It was Finnegan's voice. I looked closer at his face and the shock struck me. It was probably showing on my face, even though I tried to hide my discomfort and confusion. No way! How is this possible? I asked myself. How can it be that this man who claims to be Finnegan looks so different from all the pictures and videos that I've seen of him? I didn't recognize him and wasn't attracted to him one bit. The stranger was dressed so old-fashioned and inelegantly, wearing a light gray suit which looked oversized with pulled-down pockets. This surely wasn't the man whom I had expected to meet. I knew it from first glance. This wasn't it, not my style at all. I grew up in Russia where it's absolutely not acceptable for a man to come meet a lady for the first time without flowers. I tried to overcome my disappointment and comforted myself that at least I'd enjoy the conference and would meet some new people. We picked up my 2 suitcases and went to the car. What a deception. I almost felt like crying. I was exhausted and had no strength for talking and pretending. In an effort to be polite, I gathered all my acting talents from my drama class and asked Finnegan how he was and about the drive to his house. He tried to be friendly, offering me a bottle of spring water and asking if I wanted something to eat. With all these attempts to keep the conversation going, I felt such tension in the air. We were strangers to each other, and it felt weird to be with him in the same car. I smiled, remembering my dream on the airplane. "Oh, Abba Elohim," I prayed sincerely, "please rescue me from this stupid situation. Guide me and show me the way out. Thank you for giving me the wisdom to have a backup plan." We finally turned off the highway. The road went through the fields. There were fewer and fewer houses. Does he live in a forest? The place looked like the wilderness to me. Oh my gosh, what a hole! No people, no stores, almost no cars, no civilization. I tried to be calm, but I got a little nervous. I'm a city girl and never lived in the country. I decided to pay attention to the road signs, at least to know where we were going. Finally, there was a sign saying "Peculiar." This probably was the best description of what was going on in my life. Was this the name of the place? Perhaps it meant that crazy people live here. I didn't know whether to weep or laugh. It went from bad to worse. His house was a mess, full of boxes, papers, tools, plastic bags, and gloves everywhere. All the furniture was a mishmash of colors, junk everywhere, a complete disaster. There were so many items everywhere. The place looked like a junkyard. I guessed Finnegan did some business using these boxes, but I thought we were going to his home and not to a warehouse. Unbelievably, everything was upside down. Even the room that he had prepared for me, for his princess, was horrible. Okay, maybe the room was a little better than all the rest, but still, I had to clean it before I could use it because I didn't feel comfortable otherwise. Where were my rose petals? Where were the colorful balloons? Was this a punishment? I thought I'd repented for all of my sins. Even in a nightmare, I could have never imagined all of this. I was really upset and mad at myself because of my foolishness to get into this senseless situation. If it had been in Israel, I'd have gone into his house, turned around, and run away immediately, never seeing or talking to this man again. I plummeted from my clouds to reality, going deeply underground. Chapter 32. At the Conference. Not knowing what to say to each other, we talked about the weather. Where did all our big topics and long conversations go? They all evaporated into thin air, and I didn't even have a desire to make it better. It was clear that after the conference I would leave. This Finnegan, with whom I talked over the phone, wrote emails, chatted on Skype, was just a figment of my imagination, nothing similar to the person who stood there in front of me. I rested for half an hour, took a shower, changed my clothes, and we went to the conference. I was tired but excited to get out of his house and listen to some worship music and hear my favorite teacher. One of my colleagues in Israel had told me that her good friends Lucy and John would be at the same conference, and she suggested that we meet them. I was certain there would be less tension and better conversation flowing if there would be 4 of us. I sent a text message to Lucy, and we agreed to meet at the entrance and go to the auditorium together. There were thousands of people rushing to get inside, and we could hardly find a parking space. There were Israeli flags on the stage, many friendly people, an interesting, powerful message, and wonderful music. The worship team even sang a few songs in Hebrew. All this created an atmosphere of celebration. When the program was over, I wanted to say shalom to Tony Goldman. "Wow, Vita, what a surprise! It's good to see you." Tony didn't expect to see me there. "I came all the way just to hear you preach," I said to Tony in Hebrew with a big smile on my face. "You gave a great message." "What are you doing here in the United States?" he asked. "I'm going to visit my daughter who lives in Seattle." I didn't say a word about my adventure. Many people were gathering around Tony, waiting to talk to him, so I said good night and moved toward the exit where Finnegan, Lucy, and John waited for me. "Okay," I said to them, "let's go. I'm ready. Thank you for waiting." Suddenly a man approached me, saying, "Shalom, Vita." "Shalom?" I was puzzled. Who would know me in this crowd? "I don't think I'm acquainted with you," I said to the stranger. "My name is Shmuel. I'm also Jewish. Yes, you are right, we've never met before, but I know your wonderful music. You are a celebrity, and I'm your big fan. In fact, I listen to your albums all the time. Your songs are very anointed." "Wow, thank you. I never thought of myself as a celebrity. You truly made my day." Shmuel introduced himself as a Messianic rabbi of a local congregation. He asked how much time I was going to be in Kansas City and invited all of us to come to the service on Shabbat. He gave me his business card, said goodbye, and disappeared. It was late. I was exhausted and desperately needed to get some sleep. On the way back, we talked about the conference and Tony's powerful message. I fell asleep as soon as I got to my room and put my head on the pillow. Chapter 33. The Golden Motorcycle. Finnegan had a few acres of land filled with trees and beautiful green grass. The peaceful and relaxing scenery made me think about our wonderful Creator. I thought about how ideal it would be if every Israeli could come here and experience this quietness, since life in Israel lacks this serenity so much. I was still in my room, trying to examine my situation, praying for God's wisdom and guidance in planning my escape. Suddenly, my thoughts were interrupted by a motor rumbling outside. I peeked through the window and saw a man on a fabulous golden motorcycle that had just arrived and was standing on the driveway. At first I thought it was Joseph, Finnegan's son, but the fine-looking rider didn't seem like a very young man. Perhaps it was Finnegan's friend or one of his brothers. The man got off the bike and came toward the house. I curiously watched him, hiding behind the curtains. When he came closer, I couldn't believe my eyes. It was Finnegan! Oh, my goodness! He looked so different in jeans and leather jacket. This was a shocking discovery. Was I blind yesterday? Can it be that the clothes he wore changed his appearance so much? I didn't know what to think. Maybe I should wait a little with my escape plans. Perplexed but more motivated, I came out of my room. I was still very shy and didn't feel at home at all. Finnegan and Joseph made some toast and eggs and waited for me to have breakfast. "I see you have already ridden the motorcycle today," I said to Finnegan. "Yes, I just went to town to buy some fresh bread for breakfast," asked. "How did you sleep, Vita?" "I slept like a baby. I was so tired yesterday." "If you want to go to the conference again, we need to leave soon. Would you like to go on my golden bike? It's perfect weather for riding, and it will be easier to find a parking space there." "Yes, sure, I'd love to." The ride was wonderful. Finnegan took some wavy roads through the fields and little towns. The day flew by fast as we met many different people and attended various workshops. The conference was over at 5 in the afternoon. We went out for dinner with Lucy and John. I mostly listened to their conversations and answered their questions. We spoke about Tony Goldman's speech about Israel and faith in God. Lucy and John shared about their family and showed some pictures of their grandchildren. They asked Finnegan questions that I never dared to bring up, so I was all ears listening to his answers. He shared that his ex-wife left him with 3 kids and ran away with another man. "It was a very painful divorce," Finnegan said. "It took me many years to recover. To be a mother and a father for my children was a full-time job. Now my kids are grown, so I finally feel I'm ready to build a family again." After dinner, we exchanged email addresses and said goodbye to Lucy and John because they had to leave the next morning. The jet lag was taking over. At 8 o'clock, I already felt sleepy and had to go to bed. Chapter 34. Running from the Storm. It was the last day of the conference, and I still had not decided when to leave for Seattle. I hadn't even had time to look for tickets because we had been busy at the 3-day event. That evening, we rode the golden motorcycle again and stopped on a tall hill to watch a beautiful sunset. In Israel, there are not many places where you can see never-ending landscapes and the unlimited beauty of open skies. We got caught in a light rain on our way home. Finnegan tried to ride faster to escape from the coming storm. We were almost home when out of nowhere a police officer stopped us. I noticed a look of concern on Finnegan's face. They talked for about 10 minutes while the rain intensified. Finally, the policeman left and Finnegan came back. "Everything is fine. Let's go home. The storm is getting stronger." "Did you do something wrong?" I was curious. "Yes, I was speeding. They changed the speed limit from 45 to 35 miles per hour." "Oh, did he stop you because you were going 10 miles over?" "I was riding 70 miles per hour." "Wow, really, I didn't notice that we rode so fast. Did he give you a ticket?" "No, the police officer checked something in his computer for a long time. I was frightened that he might even take me to jail." "Oh, no, what would I do then?" "You would have to come to jail with me," Finnegan said with a smile. "This wasn't part of my plans. My daughter would really think I'm dealing with a criminal." "I'm not sure why, but he gave me mercy and no penalty at all. Maybe because I was with you." Finnegan smiled again. "Do you hear the thunder? We better hurry if you don't want to get soaked." The wind penetrated my skin. I was already wet and cold. There was an amazing, mysterious display of lightning across the sky. I held on to Finnegan, trying to stay warm and hide myself from the wind and rain. It was just the raging nature and us. I felt safe and secure, completely dependent on my driver. I had no idea how close we were to the house. All the roads looked the same to me, and I couldn't imagine how a person could navigate in an area like this. Right after we arrived at the house, the huge storm began. The thunder was so loud it sounded like there was a grenade explosion right in the backyard. The storm made the house a better place. I tried not to concentrate on the mess. While the rain continued to pound, the 3 of us, Finnegan, Joseph, and I, were cozy inside, watching a movie. Chapter 35. Busy Sunday. The next day was Sunday. After early breakfast, all 3 of us went to church. We had to be there at 8 in the morning for Sunday school. Finnegan introduced me as his friend from Israel. I was a little nervous at first, but after a while I even participated in the discussion about the scriptures. An hour later, we went upstairs for the main service. People looked curiously at me, either because I came with Finnegan or that I just looked different. I wasn't sure. I shook hands with almost everybody, smiling and repeating like a parrot, "Nice to meet you." I couldn't remember all the names. Most of them sounded like new English words to me. No way I could learn them all. They were so different from all the Russian and Hebrew names I knew. I was observing Finnegan and Joseph and tried to mimic everything they did, as this church service was unlike our Messianic synagogue in Israel. There were some rituals that were very new for me. The service lasted 1.5 hours. Most of the people went downstairs again for some fellowship, coffee, and dessert. After church, we went to visit Bella and Mark, friends of Finnegan who lived a few miles away, and whom Finnegan ministered to every Sunday afternoon. We gathered in their basement. They gave me a guitar and asked me to sing a song in Hebrew. There were notations on the blackboard. The name of Bible book, chapter, and verse where they had stopped the previous Sunday was recorded there. Finnegan read a few verses, shared his thoughts, and asked if any of us would like to add something. After almost 2 hours of interactive study together, we finally drove home. I was a little tired. "We have a few hours now before we go to the health center," Finnegan said. "Health center?" I was confused. "Are you not feeling well?" "No, I feel great. Remember I told you that every Sunday I do a worship service at the place where many sick people live?" We hardly had time to have a bite to eat, as we needed to leave for the nursing home. It was a locked facility where about 65 hopeless people of all ages lived. Most of them had some kind of trauma or even had a criminal background. The place was disgusting and stinky. Most people were in wheelchairs, while some had crazy faces or crooked parts of their bodies. I didn't feel safe enough to get closer to them because they stared at me like little kids who had just seen a new toy. Finnegan read from the Bible and gave a very short sermon. He played some music from a CD and sang hymns. They loved singing with him. It was the high point of their week, as many of them never had any visitors. When the worship service was over, Finnegan went around and shook hands with all the residents and prayed for their needs. We couldn't leave the facility until one of the nurses came and punched a security code and unlocked the door for us. When we went to the car, Finnegan gave me a rag soaked with alcohol, and he told me to wipe my hands thoroughly. Some of the people might have bad diseases, he explained, so we need to be careful not to catch anything. We ate dinner in a little restaurant and came home. After watching him during those few days, seeing his attitude toward his son Joseph, those sick people from the health center, witnessing his commitments to his church, and this couple we visited that morning, I could see his heart. When I looked at the books on his shelves, all either Bible commentaries or other spiritual books, I was convinced that he was a godly man with integrity. I appreciated his kind behavior and godly attitude. I wasn't a young girl, and he was 10 years older than me. Perhaps when you are more mature, it's a little easier to not be driven by physical attraction and to prevent stupid decisions based on lust. I started seeing Finnegan in a different light, and my heart softened toward him a lot. I finally relaxed and even caught myself joking and teasing with him from time to time. After a few days, I left for Seattle to see Natalie, but it wasn't an escape, as I planned to come back again and spend a few more days with Finnegan. Chapter 36, Father's Day. After spending a week in Seattle, I came back to Kansas City. This time, Finnegan met me at the airport with beautiful red roses. He was wearing jeans and a nice t-shirt and looked pretty decent, except for his ugly yellowish cowboy boots. I couldn't grasp why a person needed boots in the middle of June. In my understanding, boots are for winter. I wished I could tell him how much I hated those boots, but I didn't say a word, hoping one day to have a chance to express it. There were many unusual quirks I was trying to understand about this man and his country. For instance, he needed to stop at a store to pick up some groceries. When we arrived at the store, he drove in circles several times, and I didn't know what was wrong. "Are you trying to decide to go to this store or another?" "No, I'm just trying to find a good parking spot," he replied. There was an abundance of parking spaces, probably more than 30, and he was trying to find one. It was shocking for me, unbelievable. In Israel, every time I came home, I prayed to just be able to find one parking space, and for it to be big enough to squeeze my little car in. Surely life in America is so different, and people don't even appreciate all the abundance that they have. I wished we could have this much land and build these big parking places in Israel. In the store, people were very polite and friendly. At times, some of them seemed peculiar. They apologized when they went by me, and I wasn't sure why. Perhaps there was something wrong with me. I looked at myself in the mirror and didn't find a problem. I hope I didn't smell badly. Only later I understood they felt they were in my territory, too close to me, and it wasn't appropriate. So people in America have a special radius of space, maybe 1 meter or a little less, and another person is not supposed to cross their borders. If he does, he must apologize. At least this is what I had learned. In Israel, we don't have these boundaries. We just shove our way through the crowd. When we got to Finnegan's house, he said to me, "Tomorrow, here in the United States, we celebrate Father's Day. Pastor Gary from my church wanted me to ask you if you would share your testimony at the morning service and sing a few of your songs. What do you think?" Wow, it's a privilege for me, but I've never shared my story from the pulpit, especially in English. I don't think my story is interesting at all. I'm sure your testimony is very different from anyone at our church. It would be exciting for them to hear about how you, as a Jew, became a believer in Yeshua. I felt that it was an important mission and an amazing opportunity to share with Gentiles a story about a Jew finding the Messiah, so I said yes. In the morning I became very nervous and I prayed that God would help me. I said a few words about my father and how God comforted me through Finnegan. I sang a few of my songs and felt the presence of God. He was there with me. I didn't know what I had said, but all the people were thanking me and saying that they were blessed and touched. When we got out of the church, Finnegan gave me an envelope. "This is for you." "What is this? Did you write me a letter?" "It's an honorarium." I've never heard this word before. I opened the envelope and found a check made out to me. Wow, I'm rich now. Why did they give me money? I didn't know people got paid for speaking at churches. Vita, do you know in Missouri alone there are thousands of churches that would love to host you and hear your story and your music? This sounded fantastic, but I hesitated. "I'm not so sure about that," I said to Finnegan. "Tonight we are meeting with my children, Gabriel, Joseph, and Hadassah. They invited me for dinner because it's Father's Day." "Do they know that their father is coming with a stranger from Israel?" "Yes, they are looking forward to meeting you." I put on my best outfit, and we went to the restaurant to meet Finnegan's children. It was stressful for me because I didn't know what to say. I still hadn't figured out who I was to Finnegan and why I was meeting his children. I couldn't follow their conversations. They spoke too fast and used a lot of slang. At times they joked and laughed while I felt so stupid and helpless, as I didn't understand what was funny. I hoped they weren't laughing at me. I struggled to order my food and was absolutely lost looking at the menu full of strange names and descriptions. If only there were some pictures on the menu, then I could point out what I wanted. Asking questions about the meal would only cause more embarrassment because I wouldn't understand the explanation either. I was relieved when the dinner was over and we went outside. We took some pictures and said a few polite words to each other. Right before we left, Hadassah came closer and asked me, "Are you planning to move to the United States?" I was caught off guard. "I don't know." "It would be good if you'd come here to live." I was touched. "Thank you, Hadassah. It was so nice to meet you." Chapter 37, Brit Milah. I showed Finnegan some of my videos that I had made for my clients. One of them was at a Brit Milah circumcision ceremony. I explained to Finnegan that in Israel, following the commandment of the Torah, parents circumcise their baby boys on the 8th day. It's also considered a mitzvah or commandment. Usually, people invite relatives and friends to a restaurant, have food and drinks, music, and sometimes even a DJ. And in the midst of the party, a rabbi performs the circumcision ceremony in front of all the guests. "In America, a doctor usually does it at the hospital," Finnegan said. "Do you mean the Jewish people in America don't do the ceremony with all the prayers and blessings, but just take the baby to the doctor?" "I don't know about the Jews here. I'm saying most Americans circumcise their boys at the hospital without any ceremony," Finnegan said. "Are you telling me that your sons are circumcised?" "Yes, sure, as well as me and all my brothers." Wow! I couldn't hide my smile. That's good news. I thought to myself, how can it be that a goy, a Gentile, circumcises his children? Maybe they just call it circumcision, but they do something different. Was it an important issue for you? Finnegan interrupted my thoughts. Only if one day we decide to become closer than just friends. I hope we will, Vita. I like you and enjoy your company very much. Then I have to tell you that you've just passed an important criterion. We laughed. How many criteria do I need to pass? I didn't tell Finnegan that I had a list of at least 10 important qualities that I had written while praying to God about my future spouse. I didn't request Abba to fulfill all of them, but at least half. I already knew that to find a perfect man is not possible because he just doesn't exist. Only one man was perfect, my Lord and my Savior, Yeshua HaMashiach. Chapter 38. Beautiful Last Days in Kansas City. It was the end of June. The weather was wonderful. I had already started packing my 2 huge suitcases for my trip back to Israel. I asked Finnegan if we could go to some stores and buy souvenirs to take home with me. He called his friend Bella, the lady who hosted the Bible study on Sunday afternoon, and asked her what stores she recommended. "I'd love to take Vita shopping if you don't mind," Bella offered. "That would be great, Bella. Thank you." Finnegan turned to me and said, "Do you mind if we meet with Bella and Mark for lunch, and then you and Bella could do some shopping?" "Certainly. Sounds perfect. It's always better to go shopping with a girlfriend." We met in a cozy little restaurant. Bella and Mark, a wonderful couple, were very friendly. Bella explained to me about the food and suggested what to order, making it so much easier for me. She loved to talk and knew how to explain things precisely. She always smiled. We felt connected from the very first visit when I came with Finnegan to their house for Bible study. Bella and I said goodbye to the guys and went shopping. I had a whole list of friends and family members who had asked me to bring them something from America. In Israel, we have very fancy shopping malls that we call canyons, but the one Bella took me to had everything, and it looked like a big city with plenty of stores full of colors and attractions. With so many choices, styles, colors, restaurants, and playgrounds, I could have easily spent the whole day there. I wished I'd brought more money because many stores had sales. I bought a suit for myself for only $10. Bella tried to find out about my future plan concerning Finnegan. I wasn't sure if she asked on Finnegan's behalf or out of her own curiosity. "If you move here," she said, "we could do so many things together." "Thank you, Bella. You made me feel very welcome. I'm not sure yet about Finnegan. I think he is a good, godly man." "Yes, he is. I've known him for many years. Did he tell you he counseled me when Mark and I had some problems between us?" "No, he's never mentioned that." "He really helped to save our marriage." "That's wonderful. How long have you and Mark been married?" "It'll be 16 years this fall." Bella shared about her life and the abuse she went through in her first marriage and how God transformed her life. We talked about food and clothes. I didn't notice we shopped for 4 hours until Finnegan called. "Hey, where are you? I miss you. Are you on your way to Peculiar?" "Not yet, but we will be heading home shortly." Bella took me to her house and Finnegan picked me up from there. The next morning was my last day in Kansas City. I asked Finnegan if I could mow the grass as I'd never done it in my life before. The little tractor he had for mowing looked like a toy to me. It reminded me of the fun little cars that kids drive in Disneyland. Later that evening we went to dinner on the Golden motorcycle and watched another beautiful sunset afterwards. "This has been such a wonderful time, Vita. I'll miss you so much." Finnegan hugged me tightly, looked in my eyes, and asked, "When are you coming back?" "It's now your turn to come to Israel. I've seen your life, met your children and your friends. Don't you want to see how I live and meet my mom and my son Yosef?" "Of course, I'd love to come visit you in Israel and meet your family." "When you come to Israel, you'll love it. I'll be your guide and I'll take you sightseeing. This will be the best trip of your life." "Sounds like a dream. By the way, I forgot to tell you I got my passport in the mail 2 days ago. I'm not sure why it took so long." "With an American passport, you don't need any visa to go to Israel. You can come and stay for 3 months without any special visa." I don't think I'd be able to come for 3 months. I suppose November or December might work, as the schools will have a winter break. That's great. You'll come for Hanukkah then. It's a wonderful winter holiday of lights. It's mentioned in the Bible as Feast of Dedication. Yesterday, when you were taking a shower, Joseph asked me if you are coming back. He wanted to know about your future plans. Finnegan looked at me with hope in his eyes. I felt like he expected me to say something about my feelings and intentions toward him. God willing, I said, if there is a continuation of this story, the next step would be you coming to visit Israel. Joseph wants to go to the airport with us tomorrow, if you don't mind. I don't mind at all. He is such a sweet and handsome boy. If I were 18, I'd surely pick Joseph. I bet girls are crazy for him. My flight was the next day at 3 p.m. I was glad I could check in both of my giant suitcases and wouldn't need to deal with them again until arrival in Tel Aviv. Joseph said goodbye and remained in the car while Finnegan and I went inside the terminal to check in my luggage and register for the flight. The check-in went smoothly and fast. I was all set for my flight. I just had to say goodbye. We held hands. I looked at Finnegan and said, "Thank you for everything. I had an amazing time with you, Vita." He drew me closer to him and whispered in my ear, "You are my princess, and I won't give up on you. I'll be planning to come to visit you soon." He kissed me on the cheek. I felt the smell of his gentle cologne. It was so good to be in his arms. When Finnegan called me princess, I suddenly remembered an inner voice a few years ago that told me, "You are a princess, a daughter of the king." Then it had sounded almost like a promise, but I'd never paid attention to it before. Although I knew that according to the Bible I was royalty in God and deserved better treatment than I had gotten before, I wasn't used to someone calling me a princess. I thought this could only be in a fairy tale, movies, or dreams. "Please call or email me as soon as you get home," said Finnegan. "I will be praying for your safe trip." I went through security, looking back at Finnegan from time to time. He was still standing there, waving at me. Chapter 39. Back to Israel. It's always good to come back home. I love the Ben Gurion airport with the familiar smell of Israeli coffee, the Hebrew signs, and the language of my own people everywhere. It's like coming back to family, where everything is familiar and close to my heart. My mom wanted to come to the airport, but I persuaded her to stay home because my arrival was too late at night. I asked Rosa to meet me because she had a bigger car. I was concerned about my suitcases fitting into a regular vehicle. Rosa planned to stay over in my apartment in Yosef's room as he lived with my mom while I was abroad. As soon as we landed, I called my mom to let her know that I'd arrived safely. "You must be exhausted." My mom is always worried about me. "No, I'm fine. Everything was great. I will come to see you tomorrow around 4 p.m. and tell you all the stories. I have many pictures, too. Thank you so much for taking care of Yosef during this time." "Don't even mention it. It was my delight." "How was he? Did he cause you a lot of trouble?" "He was really good. He helped me to get groceries when I needed and made some important phone calls for me when I didn't understand Hebrew. He wasn't home much. You know how he is always hanging out with his friends." "I'm so glad you guys got along well. I'll see you tomorrow, Mom. Laila Tov." "I made some serniki, Russian cheese pancakes for you, so don't eat anything before you come home." "Okay, I will. Love you, Mom." "Love you too." Rosa saw me from a distance and came toward me waving. She had lost some weight and looked different. Her new hairstyle made her look appealing. It was strange to see Rosa dressed in a new dark blue suit with a light pink shirt, which matched very well with her pink glasses and lipstick. "Thank you, Rosa, for coming to pick me up. It's so good to see you." "Vita, do you want to go to Cafe Joe at the beach? They're open 24/7. "Sure, I love that place." We left the terminal and headed to the parking lot. The weather was wonderful. The day's heat was gone, and the light wind made the air so pleasant to breathe. In Israel, you don't need to pay for the luggage cart. It's free as a part of the service. With my giant suitcases, the cart made our long walk through the terminal much easier. When we got to Rosa's car, we could only squeeze one of my suitcases into the trunk and had to put the second one in the back seat. Vita, I can't wait to hear the story about your American friend. What is his name again? Finnegan. It's quite a story. I told Rosa about my first impression and about the mess and the golden motorcycle. We got to the Cafe Joe, ordered food, and I was still telling Rosa about my trip. She was in awe. Now I'm concerned that you might go to America and leave me here alone. I laughed. I'm not going anywhere. The plan is that he comes here, falls in love with Israel, and we stay here. So are you planning to marry this guy? I don't do any planning, Rosa. My God is planning everything for me. I can't make another mistake. I must follow his will. Yes, you're right. If I'm to go to America, I must leave within 1 year, which is absolutely impossible. Why is 1 year a necessity? Rosa inquired. Because Yosef will be 16.5 next June. So what? I don't understand. Even if I was to go to America, I'd never leave my son behind, correct? Of course, Rosa nodded. After Yosef is 16.5, he is obligated to go to the army and can't leave the country. Oh, I see now. Rosa, if it's God's will, he will open the sea. This is what Finnegan said to me. So I have to wait on God. Yeah, you are right. So what are you going to do in the meantime? I'm going to do nothing. Finnegan is a good man, but I'm not crazily in love. I can't lose my mind and run after another man to another country. Did you speak to him about marriage? Not really, but it's obvious he is planning to come visit me and meet my family, maybe in the fall. Rosa and I sat at Cafe Joe until 2 a.m. and finally drove to my apartment. There was one parking space left, and it was big enough to park Rosa's Honda. We had to go back and forth 3 times from the car to my apartment as we brought in one suitcase at a time. I couldn't sleep until 4:30 a.m. I kept praying and coaching myself to be patient and not to move anywhere. Stay in neutral, Vita. Don't be led by any feelings or emotions. Chapter 40. The Word Love. After my trip, Finnegan's letters became warmer, and finally one day he sent me a picture of a heart. When we talked on Skype the next day, I said, "Thank you for the heart. Hey, special, I wanted to ask you if you have a problem with this word." "Which word?" Finnegan asked, pretending he didn't know what I was talking about. I smiled, noticing that he was a little nervous. "The word love," I said matter-of-factly. Finnegan looked like I'd caught him red-handed. "Well, I guess I do have a problem with this word. Do you mind sharing with me about it? Last time I told a woman I love you, she left me. So now I'm more cautious, because I don't want to lose you, Vita." "Oh, I see. At least now I know. When you told me I like you, I thought about all those who I like, such as co-workers, neighbors, and friends. I can like many people, but only to the one I love will I give my heart and share my life." "Yes, you're right. I want you to know, Vita, that you are the one with whom I'd love to spend the rest of my life. I'm in love with you and can't wait to see you again. I also have a lot of feelings in my heart toward you," I said, "so please come soon." Chapter 41. At Work. At my work they were renovating a few rooms in the office, so I had to move to a smaller room with Sandy, a very educated lady who spoke mostly English, as she was an Ola Hadashah, a new immigrant from America. She knew very little Hebrew and had only been in Israel for a few months. Sandy did networking for the ministry and helped to develop ideas for the videos, so we had to discuss every little detail in English. It was an interesting coincidence that all day long I practiced my English and learned new words from Sandy. I shared with her that on the Israeli Memorial Day, the whole country stops for 2 minutes to give honor and remembrance to those who gave their lives for this country. "What do you mean everything stops?" she asked me. "All the cars, buses, businesses, everyone everywhere in Israel stops what they are doing and stands for 2 minutes of silence to show respect and love to this nation. Even if you are in a car on a busy highway, you'd stop and get out for 2 minutes." "So how do the people know when these 2 minutes start?" Does everyone set an alarm? No, the siren sounds at the same time in every town and every village, on all the radio stations and TV shows. It's impossible to miss it. Vita, this would be an amazing idea for a video. People abroad have never seen anything like that. Sandy, you're right. It's a genius idea. We made plans to film this event on the bridge of one of the biggest highways in Tel Aviv. Preparations were made. As soon as I positioned the cameras, the siren started. The cars began to slow down and move to the shoulders of the road from both sides. It was a little uncomfortable filming during this special time, while people stood still giving honor to the fallen soldiers or Holocaust victims. I felt like a reporter trying to catch the moment in real time. I managed to take some good close-up shots of some people. It was a powerful picture to see the emotions on their faces. The video got 30,000 hits on YouTube in just 2 days. I loved working with Sandy. One day we went to Jerusalem to do a video of the West Bank territories. We also hoped to film in Bethlehem. There were 3 people in the car, Sandy, George, and I. George was a tourist from Germany. He came to visit and volunteer for our ministry, so we took him with us to Jerusalem. The weather was great for filming, a perfect temperature of about 75 degrees Fahrenheit with no wind and no sun. We took some pictures and did interviews at the Western Wall and in the City of David, and then drove to Bethlehem. Right before the checkpoint where the Palestinian soldiers stood, there was a huge sign with red background and white letters, saying that Israelis were not allowed to enter. George and Sandy had a foreign passport, but I only had an Israeli one. We tried to talk to the security, tall young men with big rifles. One soldier smiled at us and said, "Sorry, guys, you and you," he pointed at George and Sandy, "can go in, but you, lady," he looked at me, "will have to stay here and wait for your friends." "George, Sandy, please don't leave me here alone," I begged my friends. "No, you'll have to stay here with these soldiers," Sandy teased me. Even though the Arab soldiers looked friendly, I didn't feel comfortable being with them alone. I felt bad that Sandy and George couldn't enter to Bethlehem because of me. How unfair it was that Israelis are not allowed to go into the city where King David and Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Messiah, were born. In October 2009, we had a meeting at work. We prayed as usual, then discussed and gave reports of what had been done in each department. At the end of the meeting, our financial director and CPA announced that the company was down on donations that month, so they would have to consider cutting some jobs. At least 2 or 3 people would have to be laid off. The next day, I was told that I'd be one of the 3 people who would have to go. This was devastating news. I loved my job so much. It was my life, and I had put my heart in every video I'd done. Why me? I couldn't understand how they could do this to me, knowing that I was a single parent trying to support my family by myself. I didn't get any alimony from Aaron, my ex-husband, because he let me keep the apartment instead. I still owed the mortgage for another 15 years. I knew that fear wasn't from God, but I worried. How would I survive and provide for all our needs? All things work together for good for those who believe in Adonai. I quoted the scripture to myself. My last day of work was November 5th, 2009. At lunchtime, they threw a little farewell party for me and Sandy, who was also fired due to lack of finances. Even though I knew that everything was in God's control, I still couldn't stop asking myself, what did I do wrong? When one door is closing, usually another one is opening, Sandy said to encourage me. She didn't have family in Israel, but she had some savings that she brought from the United States. I had no savings except a little money in my checking account, just enough to survive for a month or 2. According to the law of Social Security in Israel, if a person has worked for more than a year and gets fired, he is eligible for compensation from work, a month of wages for each year he worked. I had worked at my job for more than 2 years, so I got 2 months' worth of compensation, which was a great help. In addition, I was entitled to receive from Social Security 75% of my monthly salary for 6 months. It seemed like I was settled until May 2010. I had 7 months to get back on my feet and find a new job. I told Finnegan about my situation. We prayed together for new opportunities and more private clients for video productions. God had been so faithful to me I didn't have time to breathe. In no time I had tons of work doing videos for friends in different ministries. I could even put some money aside. This was a miracle. Chapter 42. A Hebrew Name for Finnegan. Many people who had come from abroad to live in Israel had two names, their regular given name and their Hebrew one. At first I couldn't find even one Hebrew name that would match Finnegan. Now that I met him in person, I knew he couldn't, for example, be Shmuel or Daniel, Pinchas or Maor. Those Hebrew names didn't match Finnegan's appearance. One day, when I read the Bible, I turned to the book of Ruth. Suddenly it dawned on me that he should be Boaz. I loved this name, even though I never had any friend with this name, or anyone else of whom the name would remind me. It just sounded good to me. At that time I didn't know that for some women the name Boaz represented an ideal man of their dreams. The Hebrew name Boaz means strength is within him. I loved the meaning, too. It suited Finnegan perfectly, and it was already settled in my mind that Finnegan would be my Boaz. Now I just needed to let him know about it. How would I approach it? Should I write him an email? Or would it be better to talk to him on Skype? I decided Skype would be the best. "Hi, sweetie. How are you today?" I said when his picture loaded on the screen of my computer. Finnegan smiled. "I'm fine. It's so good to see you, Princess. I have something to share with you. I also have something to tell you." I liked to see his face with full sensual lips and goatee beard around them. "Okay, Vita, you tell me first." I wasn't sure how to start. I took a deep breath and said, "Did you notice that I almost never called you by your name?" "Well," he paused as he tried to remember. "You're probably right. I didn't quite notice it. You called me Special, Sweetie, and Matak. I don't call you Finnegan because it's hard to pronounce and it sounds kind of strange in Hebrew." "I understand," he nodded. "I found a Hebrew name for you and would like to give it to you so you'll have another given name." I was a little nervous. Sounds interesting," he smiled. "So what name did you pick for me?" "I'd like to call you Boaz." "I love this name. It has a very good meaning, too. It means strength is in him. It's also a biblical name from the book of Ruth." "I know this name. I like it, too." "Really? So you don't mind if I call you Boaz?" "No, I don't mind at all." "So you'll be my Boaz, then." I was happy. "Believe me," I said, "it would be much easier to introduce you to people here in Israel and for my friends and family to pronounce it." "I understand. Even in the United States, people are not familiar with my name and usually ask me to repeat it when I introduce myself." "You know, many important people in the Bible also had two names. A new name always brought a significant change in their lives." "Yes, I remember that. I don't mind having my life changed, especially if it's connected with you, Vita." From that moment I called him Boaz, and it was so easy and natural for me. "Boaz," I tried to use his name right away, "you said that you have something to share with me." "Yes, I have great news." "I can't wait to hear." I got excited. "Last Sunday, when I went to Bella and Mark's for Bible study, they asked me about you. They always do." "They are such an amazing couple. I'm in touch with Bella from time to time by email and by Facebook," I said. "They wanted to know when I plan to visit you. I told them I'm trying to put some money together. You know how much I want to come and see you again, Vita." "Yes, I know," I nodded. "The business was slow all month, and I wasn't called to teach for a few weeks either. When I explained it to Mark and Bella, they said, 'You've been coming to our house already for several years to minister to us. It has been a blessing to our family. When Bella and I talked the other night about you, we realized we hadn't blessed you back for all your work you've been doing. We've decided to pay for your ticket to Israel.'" "Wow, Boaz, that's amazing news!" "Yes, they gave me a check, and I have already bought my ticket. I will be in Tel Aviv on the 20th of November. "You'll be here in a few weeks. That's awesome. Please say shalom and a big thanks from me to Mark and Bella. I will send you my itinerary. Yes, please. How long will you stay in Israel? 1 month. That's wonderful. I will start making plans for our tour. I want to show you many fascinating places in Israel. I'm so excited. I'm excited too. Boaz, I think God's favor is on us. You know, if I were still working, I wouldn't be able to take many days off to be with you when you come. But now, because I'm self-employed, I am free to spend my time the way I want. This is great. It looks like God is organizing it all for us, Vita. Yes, it's such a blessing. We'll have tons of time together. Chapter 43, Boaz Comes to Israel. It seemed like goodbyes and hellos, arrivals and departures, landings and takeoffs, and all the airport life had always been a big part of me. I loved the Israeli airport. So many memories took place there. My Israeli life started here in 1990, and now here I was again on November 20th, 2009, waiting for my Boaz to arrive. I bought a little balloon that said, "Welcome to Israel." The airport was full of people. About 10 flights from all over the world arrived almost at the same time. I had to wait 45 minutes till Boaz finally came out. He wore his yellowish boots. Oh no! His coat was so big and looked like a huge sack. He probably didn't know that in Israel they have security everywhere. I was concerned people might think he was a terrorist hiding something under his big coat. The first thought that ran through my mind was, I need to buy him some normal Israeli clothes. Boaz looked around, trying to find me in the crowd. I went toward him. Shalom, Boaz. Welcome to Israel. Vita, so good to see you, my princess. He hugged me tight and kissed me on my lips. It felt like he didn't want to let me go. Are you tired? Hungry? I asked him. A little tired, but it's okay. It was the longest flight of my life. I'm so happy to see you again, Vita. We went outside toward the parking lot. It was already dark outside and a little chilly. There were people, cars, and buses everywhere. It seemed like the whole world came here that night. We heard so many different languages. There were many smokers outside the terminal building. Boaz and I both hated to breathe it in, so we tried to pass them as fast as we could. I had a little 1997 Mazda 121 with manual transmission and a very small engine, but it drove well and was easy to park. For Boaz, with his long legs, it was too small. Boaz, not only will you have to fit in here, but starting tomorrow you'll also need to drive it, I said, smiling at him. Yes, I know, that's fine. He moved the passenger seat and reclined it as far back as it could go. Once he was settled, we started driving down the road. I have to tell you, Boaz, that driving in Israel is different from what you are used to in the United States. You'll need to learn some new rules. Oh, what kind of rules? Boaz looked surprised. For example, Israelis like to honk their horns. Why? Mostly because they are impatient. Also because some people sleep while driving on the road, so they need an alarm clock. I grinned, looking at Boaz's face. He was confused and didn't know if I was joking. Well, you'll have to teach me all the rules, Vita. This surely sounds peculiar to me. Yes, you also must never talk on the phone while driving unless you are really rich. What do you mean? Rich people can talk on the phone and poor people can't? Rich people can afford to pay the 1,500 shekels penalty. Oh, I see, he laughed. Anything else? Yes, it's important to remember that you can't turn right on a red light like you do in America. Oh, wow, you'll have to remind me of this when we're on the road. You can turn left only on the left turn signal. Anything else? Yes, there are pedestrians everywhere and you need to yield to them. Oh, you mean I can't just run over them? He joked. Boaz, I'm serious. It might all sound easy, but it can be overwhelming. Some people don't even look but jump right before your car and you need to deal with it. That's okay, Vita. I'll be fine. I hope you'll be able to have a good rest tonight. Yes, thank you. I'm giving you my room and my bed, Boaz, so you should be comfortable. Wow, I'm going to sleep in your bed? That sounds great, he smiled. Yosef has a separate little room, and I will be in the living room. I told you that my apartment is very small. I don't think you can even imagine how small it is. When Yosef and Natalie were little, I always prayed that for their birthdays nobody would bring a big toy because I would not be able to find a place for it. The traffic was bad. At 6:30 p.m., people were still coming back from work. We could see Tel Aviv's big towers from far away. Boaz, would you like me to drive by the beach so we could look at the sea? It'll take a little longer, but it'll be a prettier view. Yes, sure. Is it always such heavy traffic here? Yes, most of the main highways are always very crowded, especially during rush hour. I see. Boaz, when we get home, you'll see my calendar where I've written all the sights I am planning to show you. Even though Israel is a very small country, it's full of amazing places, and there won't be enough time to see everything. How often do you go to Jerusalem? I don't go there often. It's hard to find extra time because I worked a full-time job. I'm so excited, Vita. Thank you for arranging everything for me. I feel so blessed. It's amazing that just yesterday you were on my screen on Skype and now you are here, my real Boaz. Joseph was jealous. I wish I could go with you, he told me yesterday when he took me to the airport. Don't you need to call him and let him know you arrived okay? Yes, I'll call him from your house. How far is it? Usually it's just 25 minutes from the airport, but during rush hour it takes twice as long. Boaz, you'll meet my Yosef tomorrow because he went to a friend's birthday party tonight. He'll probably get home when you are already in bed. Vita, I brought him the running shoes he wanted and some other little gifts. Thank you. Here in Israel, a pair of running shoes like that costs a fortune. Tomorrow, if you feel fine, I'd love to take you to Mini Israel. It's a park filled with miniature replicas of Israel's most important architectural and religious sites. Where is this? Boaz asked. It's in Latrun, about 30 minutes from my house. It's easy to get there. Sounds great. Finally, we arrived at my apartment building. I have bad news, I said. What happened? All the parking spots are taken. So what do you usually do when no spaces are available? First, I pray. Then I go around and check if someone left. Boaz started to pray. God, help us. I went around a few blocks. Here it is. Can you squeeze in here? Boaz pointed to the right side of the road. I probably can, but it's too far away from the entrance. It would be a long way to pull your suitcases. Yes, that's right. I see one over there. I pointed my finger toward the car that had just turned its lights on. I think they're leaving. We waited a few minutes, and then I parked the car. Praise God, this is really close. I'm always amazed how faithful Adonai is, even in these little things, I said, smiling. Boaz looked so different from everybody. All the neighbors would notice him right away. We took the suitcases to my apartment. It's a very cute place, Vita. Small but cozy. Do you like it? Yes, I love it. You have good furniture made of solid wood. Boaz, did you notice my windows overlook a little park? I don't have any building right in front of me, which is a big plus. Is that another room? Boaz pointed to the left corner. Yes, that is Yosef's room. It's very small, just 6 by 8 feet, but he has 2 little windows, which helps a lot to have a good breeze in summertime. Everything is so well organized. Boaz looked around with interest. My room is small too, but you won't hear much noise from outside. Do you usually work here in your bedroom? I see your big computer is here. Yes, I wish I had an extra room to use as my office so I wouldn't need to have it in my bedroom. Is this a folding sofa? Yes, usually I fold it up every morning, but you don't need to do it as we won't be home a lot. We'll be traveling and doing fun things together. Boaz was exhausted. He fell asleep in the big chair in the living room while I was washing some fruit for him. Hey, sweetie, you'd better go to bed and rest well for tomorrow, I said to him. May I take a shower? Boaz asked. Yes, I heated water for you, and here are your towels. You don't always have hot water in your apartment? I have a solar boiler, so I always have hot water when it's sunny, but in winter time I need to use an electric heater since we don't have that much sun and the days are shorter. Boaz came out of the shower wearing his long robe. We kissed good night, and he went to his room. Chapter 44. Mini Israel. In the morning I prepared some blinches. Russian pancakes that taste somewhat like crepes. Yosef liked them for breakfast. He finally woke up when we were already taking stuff out to the car. Shalom, Yosef. So nice to meet you. Boaz pulled out his hand to shake. Shalom. Yosef didn't look so happy, perhaps because he came home late and didn't sleep much. I have something for you, just a second. Boaz went to his room and brought a bag with the running shoes, a beautiful blue and white basketball shirt, some magnets, candies, and gum. Thank you, Yosef said. His eyes sparkled when he saw the shoes. Yosef, I said, we are going to Mini Israel. Maybe you'd like to come with us. We can wait for you, I asked hopefully. I wanted him to get to know Boaz better. No, I've already planned to meet with my friends. When are you going to be back home? I asked him. I don't know. We have a Hanukkah party tonight. Okay, Yosef, please keep in touch. There are schnitzels in the fridge and some yellow rice. Just put them in the frying pan or microwave. Okay, thank you, Mom. The weather was cold but sunny. There were many people at the Mini Israel Park. We took pictures, went to every miniature, and read the interesting signs which told us the history of each place. We got a little tired and sat on the bench in one of the corners of the park. People were leaving as it was getting dark. The park looked beautiful in the sunset. Boaz hugged me and whispered, I love you, Vita. I'd like to spend the rest of my life with you. The sun was still shining through the trees. I felt so secure in Boaz's arms. His face was close to mine. I loved the smell of his cologne and the touch of his beard. Can we go to the Western Wall miniature again? Boaz said, getting up from the bench. We went to the Jerusalem area of the park. This miniature looks really beautiful with the lights, I said to Boaz. I know you can't compare yet with the real Kotel, the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem, but trust me, they made it look so much like the real thing. We came to the Western Wall miniature where the little figurines of religious Jews were still moving and praying at the wall, swinging back and forth and raising up their hands. Boaz, I hope you enjoyed our first day of sightseeing. Yes, it was wonderful. It's getting cold. We'd better head home, I said, pulling the hood of my coat over my head. Wait a moment. I have something for you. I wanted to give it to you in real Jerusalem, but I just can't wait. He put his hand into his right pocket and took out a very little box. A beautiful diamond ring was shining under the lights of Mini Jerusalem. Vita, will you marry me? Oh my gosh, I was absolutely not prepared for this, and probably took a very long pause before I answered him. A million thoughts ran through my mind in that very moment. Surely I must say yes, but this is impossible. How in the world can we be together if he is in America and I'm here? If I say no, I would be lying to myself. I already have love in my heart for this man, and have actually hoped that he'd propose to me. Finally, I decided that if it wouldn't work out, I'd just give him this beautiful ring back. I said, yes, I would be delighted to have you as my husband. The ring fit perfectly on my finger. Boaz, this is the most beautiful jewelry I've ever owned. I love it. We hugged and went toward the exit holding hands. I looked again at my new ring. I felt so happy and loved. Chapter 45. Trip to Jerusalem. The next day I called Fruma, my friend, who for years had been counseling me and helping me get through all the messes in my life. She was always an encouragement to me. I told her about Boaz and all that was going on in my life. She was so happy for me when I told her that we were engaged now and would like to do marriage counseling as soon as possible. We have only 1 month to do it, I said. Oh, my dear Vita, this is such good news. I can't wait to meet your Boaz. Hold on, let me talk to Bob about his time schedule. We usually do marriage counseling together. Okay. She came back to the phone and said, what are you doing tomorrow? We have many different plans for sightseeing, but we are flexible and can adjust to your schedule. Have you already been in Jerusalem? Fruma asked. Not yet. Great, we can take you to Jerusalem tomorrow. Bob knows the roads really well and the easiest places to park. He is an amazing guide and loves doing it. That would be awesome. We can come to your house at 10 a.m. or so. Will that work? If you come earlier, I'll prepare breakfast and we'll eat together around 9 and then leave for Jerusalem. When you come, we'll look closer at our schedules and see what days we can meet with you for marriage counseling." The next morning we arrived at Fruma and Bob's house at 9 a.m. They lived about a 45-minute drive from me. Their house was very big and unique, with antique furniture and a huge open armoire full of books. The cozy round table in the kitchen was already arranged for the four of us. I had been in this house many times and loved the peaceful atmosphere there. Fruma and Bob were a perfect example for me what a marriage was supposed to look like. It was always a pleasure to see their affection for one another, even after so many years together. They were kind to each other and to the people around them. I was sure they could give us great advice about our situation and guide us toward our future marriage. We had a delicious Israeli breakfast, fresh vegetables, tasty eggs, wonderful Russian bread, white and yellow cheese, some avocado, and smoked salmon. We set 5 appointments with Fruma and Bob for our marriage counseling. "This type of counseling usually takes more than just 5 meetings," Fruma said to Boaz and me, "but as you don't have enough time, you'll have to do a lot of homework." "We promise to be good students," I said, smiling at Boaz. "Yes, we will," he confirmed. After breakfast, we got in Bob's car and headed to Jerusalem. Fruma and I sat in the back seat. Bob was driving and Boaz was in the front passenger seat. While the guys talked the entire time about airplanes and motorcycles, Fruma and I talked about the future wedding plans. The weather was cold, but the sun put out much heat and made the air pleasantly warm. After a quick tour around Jerusalem, the city of David, the Mount of Olives, and the Kotel, we went to a small restaurant in the old city of Jerusalem. I was glad to see how well our conversation flowed. It seemed like Boaz fit in so well. We spoke about the Middle East, history, and politics. I was impressed that Boaz was so knowledgeable in all these topics. We added another wonderful day to our memories. Chapter 46. Mom's Surprise. In the morning I called my mom and told her the news about my engagement. She was so happy to hear it. She had met Boaz through Skype many times and knew everything about my trip to Kansas City back in June. My mom and I were very close to each other and often shared our personal stories. "Vita, I also have to share something with you." "Okay." "Do you know what your dad did before he passed away?" "What did he do?" I asked. "He posted an advertisement in a Russian free magazine." "What did he advertise?" I asked apprehensively. "He advertised me." "What? I don't understand." "Your father posted an ad saying a 65-year-old beautiful woman looking for a decent man for serious relationship, and he left my phone number." "Mom, you can't be serious. Why would he do such a thing?" This was shocking news for me. "I guess he knew he wouldn't be around and he wanted me not to be alone." "Well, isn't that something?" "Yes, your father was surely a very special man." Tears filled my eyes. I missed my dad tremendously. "So, Mom, did you get any phone calls from this?" I asked. "Yes, I had about 30 phone calls." "Wow, that's awesome! Mom, how come you didn't tell me this before? You usually can't keep any secrets." "Vita, now after you've shared with me this special news about your engagement, I want to tell you that I also met a man through your father's ad. His name is Arkady. We've already been communicating for a few months. He also proposed to me just 2 days ago." 2 days ago? Oh my gosh! Mom, that's the same day Boaz proposed to me. I began to tear up. "Are you and Boaz coming tonight for dinner as we planned?" "Yes, Mom, we'll be there around 6. "Will Yosef come?" "I hope so. I'll ask him." "That's great. Arkady will be here tonight, so you guys can meet him." Mom, I am so excited for you. I still cannot swallow the fact that Dad put that ad in before he died. "I'm excited for you too, sweetheart." My mom sounded so relaxed and content. "I will show you my ring, Mom. It's so beautiful." "So when will Boaz move to Israel?" "It's very complicated, Mom. We'll talk about it when we come tonight, okay?" "Okay, we'll see you then." I went to the kitchen, smiling but still wiping away my tears. "What happened?" Yosef asked me, coming out of his room. "Yosef, are you coming tonight to your grandma's house?" Remember, she invited all of us for dinner. I can't come. I have basketball tonight. Perhaps you can come after the game? Maybe. I can't tell for sure. I'll try. Yosef looked at me and asked, "Where did you get this ring?" I had planned to tell him about my engagement, but hadn't had a chance yet. I was impressed he noticed the ring. "Mom, did he propose to you?" Yosef asked, looking straight into my eyes. "Yes, he did." "Did you say yes?" Yosef's tone sounded like he was my manager. He was angry. "Yes, I said yes. Why are you so upset?" "Why didn't you ask me?" Yosef sounded betrayed. "I never heard that when a man proposes to a woman to marry him, she must ask her children's permission before she says yes." "Yosef, sweetie, I understand this is not easy for you." "I don't care." Yosef was mad. During the few days that Boaz was here, Yosef looked unhappy. He stated he didn't understand English when Boaz tried talking to him. "Why do you behave this way?" I asked him. "You don't know Boaz. Why won't you give him a chance? He is a very good man. He loves children and has raised 3 kids by himself. Why are you so unfriendly when he tries to talk to you?" "I don't feel like talking to him." "Yosef, that's not the right attitude. You don't need to love him. But can you please just be polite?" "Okay, fine. I'm leaving now." "Where are you going? What about your breakfast?" "I'm not hungry." He put on his shirt, grabbed his cell phone, and went out. My heart felt so heavy. I knew it was hard for Yosef to see me with another man who wasn't his father. "What a morning," I said to myself. "I don't know how, but God willing, somehow everything will work out." Chapter 47. Visiting my mom. Boaz and I went to the beach, which was just a 5-minute drive from my home. The waves on the Mediterranean Sea were huge and very pretty, curling over and full of whitecaps. We walked along the beach as the wind blew on our faces. The beautiful palm trees swung back and forth, almost like they were saying to us, "Yes, yes, yes." The view was spectacular. Usually during summer the beach promenade was full of people, but that day it was quiet and not crowded at all. "I like this place," Boaz said. "Me too," I nodded. "So how do people usually get married here in Israel if one of the spouses isn't Jewish?" Boaz asked. "They usually go to Cyprus and get married there. The authorities in Israel accept marriage certificates from there." "Vita, do you want to go to Cyprus next week and get married there?" "Next week?" I laughed. "Don't you want to become my wife next week?" "This would be awesome. But what would you do with me after that?" "I will take you with me to America." I told Boaz about my conversation with Yosef this morning. "Yes, Vita, I noticed that he is having a hard time accepting me. I wish we could spend more time together, but it looks like he is very busy with his friends and sports. I think he is jealous," I said to Boaz. "It is very common for kids to react this way. He always received full attention from you, and suddenly I'm here taking part of it away from him." "Boaz, I'd never be able to go to America if Yosef wouldn't come with me. You understand that, don't you?" "I know, Vita, and I understand. We will have to trust God." "I also have some other news to tell you." I shared with Boaz about my mom and how she had met Arkady. "This is unbelievable, Vita. And by the way, this is one of the signs already." "What sign?" "Remember, you told me you couldn't leave your mom here because she is alone? It looks like she won't be alone anymore. This is great news." "Ah, you're right." Boaz put his arm around my shoulders and said, "I'm looking forward to finally meeting your mom tonight. You'll love her. She is such an amazing mom. A real Yiddisher mama." Just before going to Mom's, I gave a short Russian lesson to Boaz. Spasiba means thank you. You can use this word anytime you don't know what to say. He grinned. My mom opened the door for us with a big smile. "Shalom, Boaz." "Shalom, Paulina. Kakdela. How are you?" Boaz said in Russian and Hebrew exactly as I taught him. They gave each other a big hug. My mom looked at me and asked, "Does he speak Russian?" "He just knows a few words. I'll translate from English into Russian and back." Okay, great. Mom, where's your new friend? Arkady should be here any moment. Vita, please tell Boaz not to be shy and feel at home. Is Yosef coming? My mom asked. He said he'll try to come after the game, I answered. Good, my mom said, while trying to finish all the preparations. Mom, here is the ring. Look. I stretched out my hand. Wow, gut, she said to Boaz, pointing to my hand with the ring. Boaz smiled and said, Spasiba. The doorbell rang. It's open, my mom said loudly. A tall, elegant man with gray hair stood at the doorway. Shalom. My mom hurried to the door and said, Please, meet my friend, Arkady. I stepped forward, extending my hand. So nice to meet you, Arkady. This is my daughter, Vita, my mom said. Arkady smiled at me. You look a lot like your beautiful mother. Thank you. Boaz and Arkady shook hands, and we sat at the table. We spoke about food, about America, about God and religion. It was a wonderful evening, and it felt like real family. I liked Arkady very much. He had such a kind personality, and looked very strong and manly, even at his age. I could tell right away that he was head over heels in love with my mom. I wished Yosef would show up, but he didn't. Mom and Arkady said they had planned an engagement party in 2 weeks. Now that we have 2 engaged couples, my mom said, we need to have a double party. We'll kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Mamulia, I don't mind having a party, but we still don't know when and if at all we'll be together. What do you mean? Boaz wants to marry you, doesn't he? Yes, Mom, he wants to marry me even next week, but to make marriage papers is easy. The question is what we'll do after that. Doesn't he want to come live in Israel? Yes, he does, but right now he can't. His plan is to take me to America, at least for a year or 2. Vita, I see that he is a good man and he is cute. You look great together. I like him. Mom, I love him and I want to be with him, but what should I do about Yosef? I'll never leave my child just because I met a good man. He is only 16 and he needs me. I understand. You and Boaz have been in touch already for more than a year. I want you to be happy, Vita. Even though I'll miss you terribly, I believe you should consider going to America. Mom, I don't have the shalom in my heart about going. I love Israel. This is my home. I feel so divided. On one hand, I really want to get married and finally live with a godly man. But on the other hand, I feel that I belong here in Israel. I shared with my mom how angry Yosef was about me saying yes to Boaz. Vita, this would be a great opportunity for Yosef to go to America to study English and meet new friends. This is how you and I see it, but that's not the way Yosef does. Vita, try to talk to him. I will. It's hard to catch him. He's never home. I know, he is in this crazy age. Mom, was I this bad when I was a teenager? You also didn't want to listen to anyone and behaved like you knew everything in life. We laughed. Mom, when does this age usually end? When do teenagers get their brain back? It depends. Yosef is a good boy. I will talk to him. It was getting late. Boaz was still struggling with jet lag and felt sleepy, so we went home. Chapter 48. Engagement Party. During this short month while Boaz was in Israel, we'd gone on many great tours together. We went to the north of Israel, spent time at the Sea of Galilee, visited Nazareth, Tiberias, Haifa, and climbed to the top of Mount Tabor. We combined sightseeing with visiting friends and family, as well as our marriage counseling with Bruma and Bob. We drove to Eilat, the southernmost city in Israel that is on the Red Sea, then visited some friends in Arad, a city that is in the desert between Beersheba and Eilat. We spent a day at the Dead Sea and visited many other beautiful places in Israel. It was an interesting tour and a wonderful time for Boaz as well as for me. Even though I had lived in Israel for 20 years, I had never visited some of the places before. One of them was the Agaman Hula Park, situated in the heart of the Hula Valley. It's a prominent bird-watching place. At the park we could see different birds as well as other animals according to seasons. A magical lake at the heart of the site allowed experiencing nature without cages or partitions. We rented a little golf cart and toured the park's unique trails among fruit groves and waterways. My daughter Natalie had her winter break, so she came to visit from Seattle. She grew up and went to school in Israel, so she had many friends there. She came home every year in December to see us and to hang out with her friends. It was a perfect timing for her to come and meet Boaz. She spoke great English, so there wasn't any language barrier. I wasn't sure how much Natalie liked or disliked Boaz, but she seemed happy for me when she heard Boaz propose to me. The engagement party was in a Russian restaurant where people usually not only ate but also had music and dancing. I invited just a few close friends, Lena and Leon from Haifa, Rosa and her new boyfriend, and a few people from our congregation. I didn't want to make a big deal of it, as I still didn't know how it would all work out. Yosef came and even agreed to dance one dance with me, which was unusual. He and Natalie were happy to see each other and had a great time talking and laughing together. I gave Yosef my big camera, so he was taking many pictures. At the party, we sat next to my mother's brother, Uncle Nick, who had made Aliyah to Israel from the United States 3 years prior. He adjusted to the Israeli climate and atmosphere very fast and enjoyed his new life in Israel. He bought a very beautiful apartment on the beach of the Mediterranean Sea, remarried, and went back to his hobby of playing his saxophone. Boaz and Nick talked about Nick's transition from the USA to Israel. I hoped that Nick's story would encourage Boaz, and perhaps would put the desire in his heart to come live in the Holy Land. Mom and Arkady invited about 45 people, so the restaurant was full. It was very loud. The food was so delicious and more than we could eat, as always at Russian feasts. Many of the guests pronounced toasts and wished both couples happiness and prosperity. I sang a song dedicated to my mom. This was the first time Boaz heard me singing live. He said that I sounded wonderful. When the slow music started, Boaz invited me to dance. This was our first dance together. Both Natalie and Yosef were observing us. I was glad that the main attention was on my mom and Arkady. It was so healing to see my mom happy. They both were shining with love. Chapter 49. Talking to Yosef. The month ran away so fast. Boaz's flight was in 3 days. I did not want him to leave. Almost every day Boaz and I had gone to the beach in the early evenings to walk along the sea and watch the sunset. One evening I finally persuaded Yosef to come and meet with us at a restaurant, where they sold many different kinds of ice cream and made frozen yogurt from scratch, from all the variety of fruits, nuts, and chocolates. Yummy! We chose a little table in the corner of the restaurant with 3 comfortable chairs and sat there enjoying our desserts. Yosef refused to speak English, so I was translating into Hebrew. Yosef, we are planning to go to a museum in Holland tomorrow. Your mom says that it's a very interesting experience for all ages. Perhaps you'd like to come with us. Boaz tried to start the conversation. Yes, Yosef, I said, it would be great if we could spend some more time together. You know that Boaz is leaving in a few days. No, I can't come. My friend Tom has a birthday. We want to go have pizza. Mom, can you give me 20 shekels? Okay, Boaz and I want to talk to you about the future, I said. Yosef, you probably noticed, Boaz started his speech. Your mom and I have been communicating every day for more than a year. Yes, I know. We love each other and would like to live together and build a family. I understand, Yosef said seriously. Right now I don't have the possibility to come to live in Israel, so I'd like you and your mom to come to live with me in America for at least a year or 2. No way. I'm not going anywhere from Israel. I have all my friends here. As for me, the best solution for you would be just to forget about each other. Yosef, why are you speaking like this? I wasn't happy with how rude his tone was. Mom, you can go, but I will stay here. I can stay with my dad. You can't. I talked to him about it. He said that he would love to have you, but right now he doesn't have any room for you. I can stay at Maor's house. His dad would love for me to stay with them. Yosef, my dear, the only person with whom you'd be able to stay is your father. but I'd like you to consider coming with me. It's much easier to study in America. You'll meet new friends and learn to drive and get your driver's license there. In Israel, it's very expensive. You'll learn English well and have a choice about the army. We would be able to visit Natalie in Seattle more often. So please think about it. I tried to convince him to at least be reasonable about it. I don't want to consider anything. I'm not going to America. This is final, and please don't ever talk to me about it again. Yosef got up and started going toward the door. Yosef, I tried to stop him. Where are you going? We haven't finished talking. I must go. I came back to the table and didn't know what to tell Boaz. I had predicted that it wouldn't work. I knew how Yosef felt and understood his feelings. Israel was his home. He was born here, grew up, and met his friends here. Who, if not me, knew so well how hard it is to leave your home? My heart broke. What are you planning to do, Vita? Boaz asked sadly. I have no idea. He is not a little boy. I can't bring him to America by force. I also can't leave him behind. Yes, I totally understand. Chapter 50. At the Tel Aviv Airport. Boaz's flight was late in the evening. The wonderful smell of Israeli coffee, many different faces from all over the world, the same theme of routine airport busyness touched and triggered all my senses once again. We checked in Boaz's suitcases. We still had some time to sit together at a little restaurant with comfortable soft chairs and have a drink. We both were sad and didn't know when we would see each other again. We moved our chairs closer together. I put my head on Boaz's shoulder. We held hands and sat quietly for a while. Boaz, I'm sorry that Yosef was so unkind to you. I wish I could find the right way to connect with him. I felt like he didn't want to have anything to do with me, Boaz said. Yes, I know, but he is still a child. He probably thinks his life might be destroyed because of you. Vita, he surely wants me to vanish so everything would go back to normal. We both smiled. I don't want you to vanish. I turned to Boaz and kissed him on the cheek. Children are often very selfish. They want the parents to adjust to their needs. We can't be regulated by our children. Vita, I understand that Yosef felt jealous. It's pretty normal for kids in this situation. Should I remain single for Yosef's sake? Even now he is never at home. He's hanging out with his friends all the time. Eventually he'll be gone to his own life like Natalie. She is far away and I see her only once a year. This is the reality. Yes, I know, Vita. When did you say Yosef should register for the IDF? In June. You know, after he registers, I won't be able to take him out of the country. Yes, I understand. Boaz looked straight into my eyes and said, I'll miss you, my Vita. I had such a great time. I'll miss you too, I said tearfully. I didn't want to offend Boaz, but I wasn't sure if I should keep the ring or give it back to him. It seemed like our story was ending here at this airport. I was wondering what Boaz had in mind, if he had any plans. What do you think we should do? I asked. I don't know, sweetie. It looks like we have to wait and see what happens in June. I just want you to know that I'm not giving up on us, and I'm not going to vanish, he smiled. I'll continue praying and seeking God for a way for us to be together soon. Please say hi from me to Joseph, Gabriel, and Hadassah. Yes, I will. The Israeli security sometimes takes longer than others, so you probably should go in soon, I said. Yes, you're right. We got up and went toward the security entrance. Boaz, it has been an amazing month for me. It'll be hard to go back to my routine. Vita, I will call you tomorrow when I get home. He drew me closer to himself and gave me a long goodbye kiss. I love you, Vita. I love you too, Boaz. He went in, waved to me one more time, and disappeared into the crowd. I went back to my car thinking how good it had been to have a personal driver for a whole month. I felt lonely. The weather was cold. It took me only 25 minutes to get home as there was no traffic at night. Yosef was already in bed. I prayed and read for a while and finally fell to sleep. Chapter 51. Back to Routine. In the morning I looked at the pictures we had taken. They reminded me of our eventful, wonderful time together during Boaz's visit in Israel. We had seen so many interesting places, met with people at my congregation, spent quality time with Natalie and my mom, and had Kabbalat Shabbat with my friends. The marriage counseling with Fruma and Bob helped us to get a deeper understanding of our relationship and drew us closer to each other. After Boaz left, I was glad to be busy and not think about our hopeless situation. I had a lot of work to do and didn't know where to start. Many video projects needed to be completed. I had to take time to prepare for the Friday worship at our congregation, choose the songs, connect with my team, and practice. I also had many different errands to run. Life slowly returned to its routine. I didn't have time to be bored. In the evenings when I was at home, Boaz and I often chatted on Skype. At times I really missed Boaz and wished he were near, but I forbade myself to get too emotional. I put myself in neutral mode and just prayed, Adonai, if you close this door, I will praise your name, and if you open this door, I will praise your name. May your will be done, nothing more, nothing less, and nothing else. I knew that even if somehow I'd be able to go to America and marry Boaz and build a new family, it still would be very hard for me to leave my beloved Israel and be far away from my family. I sometimes wished I wouldn't be so attached to Boaz already, as it would be more painful now. After all we've gone through together, it would be painful to say goodbye forever. I needed a good partner, a godly man like Boaz, caring and loving, making all the decisions and able to be a true Cohen, a true priest of the family. We were engaged, but we didn't talk to each other about our future. We didn't know if there was any future for us. Why are you always in some kind of crazy situation, Vita? I asked myself. One evening, about 2 weeks after Boaz left, Yosef asked me, Mom, what have you decided to do? I see you're still in touch with your Boaz. I haven't decided anything. Are you going to marry him? What is the reason for getting married if he is in America and I'm here in Israel? Why don't you tell me what you're planning to do? Yosef demanded. Yosef, sweetie, I'm telling you the truth. I haven't made any decision yet. Why are you still wearing the engagement ring? He asked. I'm still engaged to Boaz. Is he coming here to live with us? Yosef persisted. I don't know. It's all in God's hands. Mom, do you want to go to America? No, not at all. I love Israel and never want to go live in another country. Me neither, Yosef agreed. A few days later, I told Yosef that I wanted to go to a store that sells different lamps and get a new chandelier for our living room to replace the big ugly one that we had. I had been planning to buy that one for a long time. Will you go with me, Yosef? I asked him. Mom, why would you buy a new chandelier? Yosef asked surprisingly. What do you mean, why? Don't you see that this one is old and ugly? I mean, why buy if we won't be here anyway? I couldn't believe he said that, and wasn't sure if he meant we'd be gone to America. I didn't ask him and switched the conversation to another topic. All this time, I continued praying for God's will and asked God to show me the way. A week later, out of the blue, Yosef said to me, Mom, I think we need to go and stay in America not for 1 year, but for 2 years. I was so shocked hearing this from Yosef. I couldn't find words to answer him. Finally, I said, actually, to stay there for 2 years would be the best, as you'd finish school and come back to Israel with a high school diploma. You also would have a choice either to go to the army right after high school or finish college in America and then go to the army with a degree, so you'll be able to serve as an officer. How will I go to school there? I don't know English well. You know some English already. I'm sure you'll pick up the language very quickly. I hope so. Joseph, maybe you'll like it there. You never know. You'll meet some new friends. In any case, it would be a great experience for you. So, Mom, when do you plan to go? Well, I don't know. It's a new idea now. I will talk to Boaz tonight and we'll start making plans. I thanked God for this new development. It looked like everything was coming together for my move to the United States, but I still felt restless. I still didn't have complete shalom in my heart. I asked God to give me another affirmation or sign. I wanted to know for sure that it was his will for me to do this big move. Chapter 52. More Signs from Above. Many years ago in 1998, when the four of us, my ex-husband Aaron, Natalie, Yosef, and I lived together in our little apartment, I recalled praying to God, asking for a bigger place. Just one more room, or at least a few more square feet, I'd begged Adonai. I remembered the inner voice had told me then, Vita, one day you'll live in a house, not in an apartment. I cherished this promise, and was sure that in my future life, the eternal one, I would definitely live in a real house and not in an apartment building. Now, in 2010, I heard this little voice again saying to me, "Remember, I promised Vita, you'll live in a house." At first I didn't understand how it was connected to my prayers about my marriage, but after a few moments it dawned on me. The promise about the house was for this life. Boaz lived in a real house with some land around it. Oh my goodness, this was the sign! How come I didn't connect it before? If I come to America and marry Boaz, I will live in his house. Boaz was so happy to hear the news that Yosef was willing to move to America for 2 years. It was the middle of February, Valentine's Day. We don't really celebrate this holiday in Israel. In America, as well as in many other countries around the world, it is considered the day of love. Many people exchange cards, candies, gifts, or flowers with their loved ones. Boaz bought me an amazing gift, an airplane ticket to come visit him for a few weeks in March. This was the best present ever, as I really missed him. I wanted to go back to America and look at everything with different eyes, observing it as a place where I might be living in the future. I was so scared I'd make a mistake and go by my feelings instead of the will of God. I wanted to see Boaz again in person and make my final decision about our marriage. Bella called to tell me how excited she and Mark were about us getting married. I told her, "I'm still struggling with this idea because we didn't court enough. It happened so fast, you know." "Boaz is a wonderful, godly man. You fit so well together." "Bella, I'm sure you understand that it's not easy for me to break my life into pieces and make such a move from Israel to the United States." "Yes, of course I understand," Bella said. "On one hand, I want to have a family, but I also want to be in Israel, so I'm still praying. I wish I had complete peace in my heart about it. By the way," Bella tried to inspire me to move forward, "just in case you decide to get married in March during your coming visit, we found a Messianic rabbi who is willing to do a Messianic wedding ceremony for you and Boaz with a chuppah, the canopy beneath which Jewish marriage ceremonies are performed, with all the special blessings and whatever else is needed." "Wow, where did you find this rabbi?" "I found him on the internet and even talked to him. His name is Shmuel." "Rabbi Shmuel. Is he the one who has a Messianic congregation in Overland Park, Kansas?" "Yes, that's the one. Do you know him?" "Yes, Boaz and I met him last year at the Israel Mandate Conference. He was the one who called me a celebrity. He really likes my music. He is a very lovely person. I liked him a lot." "Well, this makes it even easier then," Bella said joyfully. "Last year Boaz and I even visited his synagogue. This is an interesting coincidence." "Vita, I'd be so happy to help you with all the wedding preparations." "Bella, my dear, you know I don't have any girlfriends there except you. Surely I'd be happy to get any help, if God willing we get to the point of marriage." "Vita, if you want, you can stay with us when you come to visit in March," Bella generously offered. "I might consider that. Thank you, Bella. You guys are such a blessing." I begged God to give me another sign. Like Gideon, I wanted to be 100% sure I was on the right path. I kept asking Adonai, could it be that, having finally settled in Israel after all those years of gypsy life, you want me to go somewhere else again? One day, right before my trip to the USA, I looked through my clothes in the overhead storage, where I kept boxes of my belongings that I didn't use all the time. Usually once a year I sorted through them to see if I needed anything from it for the season. When I opened one of the boxes, something white caught my eye. It was a bridal veil made of fine chiffon. The first question that came to my mind was, how did it get into the box and where did it come from? I had no doubt that this bridal veil was the sign for me. I smiled in my heart and thanked God for his amazing way of showing me his will. I sat for a few minutes absolutely hypnotized, looking at the veil and trying to figure it out. At times we pray for something, but when we get an answer or a sign, we are so shocked. After a few minutes, I remembered that I used this veil in 2001, 9 years before, when I played Queen Esther in the Purim play at our Messianic congregation in Tel Aviv. I had been dressed all in white like a bride, prepared for the wedding with the king. In the congregation we had a special wardrobe for our drama team where all the costumes were always kept. All these years I didn't know I had this veil in my home. How was it possible that for such a long time I had never seen it in my overhead storage? It's a mystery, and I still don't know the answer to this question. Chapter 53. Going back to Kansas City. Here I was, going on another trip to the United States with more shalom in my heart and with some anticipation. I felt like I was on another exciting adventure. In some ways, this airport once again was taking me to a new destination. I decided to stay at Bella and Mark's house. On my arrival to Kansas City, Boaz took me directly from the airport to their house. I wanted to have real dating, to go out with my fiancé and experience this courting time before the wedding. Boaz taught in school every day, and after work he picked me up and took me for dinner where we spent wonderful quality time, talking about us, our future, our visions, hopes, and dreams. All this time my little room at Bella and Mark's house was full of beautiful red roses, which Boaz brought me almost every day. On weekends we spent more time together. We visited with Bella and Mark, watched movies together, and met with some of Boaz's friends from his church. It was a delightful time of being courted. During all this time Boaz didn't take me to his house, because he knew that the mess there might upset me. I told him that I was concerned about it, as I felt it would take me years to clean and organize his house. I told him one day, "Boaz, you are messianic, but from the word messy." We laughed about it. I was the one that had to make this hard decision about getting married in March. For Boaz it was clear that this was the right thing and the right timing. He found out that we couldn't marry in the state of Missouri because I was an Israeli citizen and didn't have a social security number. Boaz didn't give up and checked with surrounding states. Only Arkansas was workable, which was about 200 miles away. All we had to do was to go down there to get married. "I have some good news," Boaz said when he came to Bella and Mark's house to pick me up for dinner. "Today I called to the county clerk at the courthouse again about getting a marriage license." "The one in Arkansas?" I wanted to clarify. "No, the one in Missouri. I talked to a different person, a lady who is the main clerk. She said we could come to pick up our marriage license and get married in Missouri." "Really? I don't understand," Bella said. "I called them twice and they told me it's not possible." "It looks like everything is possible with God." Boaz looked at me, smiling from ear to ear. "I hope this will be another sign for my beautiful fiancé." "Boaz, please explain. How did you do it?" I couldn't wait to hear. When I talked today to the Maine county clerk, it seemed to me she had never encountered this situation of a person being from another country. So at first she said it's not possible, but then suddenly she changed her mind and stated, "Perhaps I can just leave the space for the social security number blank." "Yes, I can do that," she said. "So come on down. I will give you the marriage license." This was the last drop, the final piece of the puzzle. After this I had no more doubts. We went to get the marriage license. Chapter 54. Counting the Blessings. According to the Jewish traditions, the ideal day to get married is Yom Shalishi, Tuesday, because in the story of creation, in Genesis chapter 1, the phrase kitov, for it is good, is used twice on that day. So we chose Tuesday, March 23, 2010, which did not give us much time. We had one marathon week of wedding preparations, the wedding day, and then a week-long honeymoon before I had to return to Israel. Nothing was prepared for my sudden move. This was huge. I had to wrap up 20 years of my life in Israel in 2 months. Vita, don't think about your move now, I coached myself. You need to focus on your wedding and enjoy your precious moments. Take each day step by step. First, we called Rabbi Shmuel over the phone. We put him on speaker so we could both hear him and asked if he was available to do the Messianic wedding ceremony for us on March 23rd, 2010. Yes, of course, I'd be delighted to do this. Do you already have a place? No, we are still looking for one. Perhaps you can recommend something for us. Do you know that there is a little Messianic congregation in your area? You might want to check them out, Rabbi Shmuel said. What is the address of the congregation? Boaz asked. It might be a little far away, though. It's in Peculiar, Missouri, he said. Boaz and I looked at each other and couldn't believe that it was even possible to find a Messianic congregation in such a small place as Peculiar, Missouri. Well, I live in Peculiar, Missouri, Boaz said. Oh, so it must be just a mile or two from you. That's wonderful. I will find out the exact address and I'll text it to you shortly, the rabbi said. Do you have any idea how much they usually charge for renting their space? I asked. I'm not sure. Probably a few $100s. Next day we found this place. It was just 2 miles from Boaz's house in the middle of nowhere. We talked to the leaders about renting this place for a few hours for the wedding ceremony. What day and time do you need it? Asked Joshua, one of the main leaders. Next week on Tuesday from 4 until 6 p.m. Let me see. Joshua took out his phone to check his calendar. It looks like the space is available. We don't have anything scheduled on March 23rd. He smiled and said, So, no problem. You can use the place. Wow, this is wonderful. How much will you charge us? You won't need to pay anything. If you want, you can give a donation to the synagogue. We'd be glad to. Thank you so much, Boaz and I said in unison. As you can see, Joshua pointed to the stage, we have a chuppah that you can use. You might want to decorate it a little. If you need our sound system, I can run it for you on the 23rd. Wow, Joshua, that would be awesome. We don't know how to thank you. Just thank Adonai. We came out of the synagogue full of joy, laughing and thanking God for this tremendous blessing, but this was just the beginning. Bella took me to the store where I exchanged one of my gold earrings for a beautiful gold ring for Boaz. I don't know how I would have managed everything without Bella helping me. She knew where to buy all the wedding accessories, flowers, and decorations. At the store where they sell wedding dresses, I chose a light pink dress which was on sale for a reasonable price. I felt like a real princess when I put it on. Bella and some ladies at the store complimented me, saying that it fit me perfectly. I said to Bella, I love it. I'm taking this one. Good choice, Bella smiled. I went back to the fitting room to take off the dress. When I got out and came to the cashier with the dress hanging on my left arm, ready to pay, the cashier said to me, It has already been paid for by your friend. Enjoy, and congratulations on your wedding. I looked at Bella. Her radiant face had a big smile. She approached me and hugged me while the saleslady put the dress into a big colorful bag. This is my present to you, Vita. Oh, Bella, thank you so much, I said tearfully. 2 days before the wedding, there was a huge snowstorm. 13 inches of snow fell on the ground. Oh, no, I said to Boaz. I had hoped for a good sunny day so we'd have good pictures outside with my beautiful new dress. I was concerned that some guests might not want to drive in the snow. We can only pray that somehow God will send us a sunny wedding day, Boaz tried to encourage me. A day before our wedding, on the 22nd of March, it was still cold and windy outside. But the next morning, all of a sudden, the weather drastically changed. The sun shone so powerfully that in just a few hours all the snow was gone. It was perfect weather for this special occasion, very warm and not too windy, and I could be in my dress outside and not need a coat on top. Boaz's niece gave us a key to her amazing antique house in Iowa, which was about a 4-hour drive. I'll be away for 5 days, she said, so if you want, you can use my house for your honeymoon. In addition, Bella and Mark gave us a voucher for 2 nights at the historic Elms Hotel, which was established in 1888 and rebuilt in 1912 from native limestone. It was the perfect place for a romantic getaway. We didn't want to do a big wedding, so we decided to make it very modest and invited only close family and some friends from the church. No one from my family could come because of the very short notice. We expected 35 people at the most. Boaz and I looked for a place for the reception. We couldn't afford to go to an expensive restaurant, so we chose Ryan's, a buffet restaurant, which was a very simple place, not a fancy one, but they had good food and a separate room for us to use. Their space was available for Tuesday night, so we booked it for the reception. There was no time for special invitations. We sent emails to some people and called most of the others, giving them the address of the Messianic Synagogue for the ceremony at 4 p.m. and Ryan's restaurant for the reception at 6:30 p.m. When Boaz's oldest son, Gabriel, found out we booked the reception at Ryan's, he said to Boaz, "Dad, no way! You are not going to do your wedding reception at Ryan's. It's just not going to happen." "Why not? What's the problem?" Boaz was puzzled. "That restaurant isn't fit for a wedding reception at all." "I know it's not a fancy place by any means, but they have reasonable prices and the food is good. I'm sorry, Gabriel, but we've already booked it and told all the guests to be there by 6:30 p.m. "Did you pay any deposit?" Gabriel asked. "No, we didn't. They didn't require a deposit." "That's great. Dad, tell me how much you plan to spend on the reception and how many people you think might come." "There will be about 25 people. We plan to spend about $300. "I'll get you another place," Gabriel said, "and I will set it all up for you. Just give me a few minutes. I'll call you back soon." Gabriel called in about half an hour. "We are going to the Harper House in Independence, Missouri. I've already given the deposit, so it's final." "Wow, Gabriel, I know that place. It's the best restaurant in the area." Boaz was astounded. "By the way, Dad, I've already ordered the best steak for you. You need to tell me what to order for Vita. She likes fish." We gave Gabriel $300 and he paid for the rest. We didn't even know how much it cost him. It was already too late to email and call all the people, so at the end of the wedding ceremony we announced that the reception would take place in a different restaurant. When we came out of the synagogue, our car was decorated with ribbons and a big sign saying, "Just Married." Boaz's children and niece ornamented the room at the restaurant with so much love, using many different balloons, flowers, lights, and candles. Little chocolate bars were shining everywhere on the tables. The dim room, lit by the glow of many candles, made the atmosphere warm and very romantic. This was incredible. It felt like everything was prepared for us, blessed from every direction, provided and planned from above. I couldn't have asked for more. This surely was the best time of my life, and I praised my beloved Adonai for all the tremendous blessings that he poured on us through my wonderful new family and friends. During the whole wedding day I had a strange feeling, almost like a vision. I was watching a wonderful romantic movie, a fairy tale that was about me. Somehow I was in the movie, and I saw it all from outside. I was that beautiful princess on the big screen. I didn't understand how I could be in two places at one time. I looked again at the screen. Yes, it was me, a shining and smiling bride dressed in a beautiful wedding dress, embarking on my new life. It was almost like waking up from a dream and trying to understand what was true and what wasn't. I looked at Boaz the next morning and said, "Boaz, are we married now? Are you my husband? Is it true?" "Yes, baby, you are now my wife." "Am I now stuck with you forever?" "Oh, no," I teased. "Yes, you are. Don't you remember where we met?" "Where?" "At togetherforever.com."